The scowling little boy was, in fact, our main character, Zeke Eldragon. Do not let his infant-sized body fool you. In his previous life, he was none other than Gilfaz Eldragon, the patriarch of the strongest clan on the entire continent. As for why he had appeared in the form of a newborn like this, we need to go back more than 1,000 years. He had once reached the absolute pinnacle of martial arts, only to realize that no human lifespan could ever be long enough to truly surpass that truth. Clinging to an ancient legend, he learned of a sacred land hidden deep within the world, guarded by a divine dragon. Buried at its center was said to be a metallic golden fruit, one believed to hold the very essence of immortality, the fruit of eternal life. Driven by this conviction, Gilfaz traveled there, defeated the divine dragon, and finally laid eyes on the mythical fruit itself. Dragging his wounded body across the ground, he forced himself toward the tree and quickly plucked the fruit. With this, I can keep pursuing the absolute peak of martial arts, he declared, laughing with relief as he devoured the fruit without even a moment of hesitation. Such was Gilfaz Eldragon, the man heralded as the strongest in the world. Time drifted by, and decades passed. Inside a quiet room, sorrowful voices echoed over and over. It is a matter of time now. He is simply too old. At the very least, let him rest peacefully. Sitting by the bedside was the eldest son of the family, William. He called out to his father again and again. The look on his face was so pitiful that even Zeke, trapped in this frail, elderly body, felt compelled to speak. Stop showing me such a pathetic face. My time has simply run out. That is all. Hearing that, William forced a laugh. This mansion feels so cold without mother. You? Zeke shook his head. Do not be so weak. Even so, deep down he could not help but think, those legends were never trustworthy after all. But at least I was blessed with a loving wife and good children. He gently stroked the face of his grandchild and continued, my beloved children. I, your old man, have lived long enough. I leave this world with no regrets. Well, that was what he said outwardly. Inside, however, Zeke was absolutely fuming. Do not be ridiculous, of course I have regrets, if only I had a bit more time. If only I could have had more. I still have not reached the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. Gilfaz's trembling, withered hands slowly rose toward the air. Watching this, his son could not stop his tears from falling. And just like that, Gilfaz Eldragon's life came to an end, or at least, that was how it seemed. No one knew how much time had passed when Gilfaz suddenly regained consciousness. Confusion washed over him. Did I fall asleep? These wallpaper patterns. Are not these from the annex building, and why does my body feel so light? What is with these tiny hands? He stared at the small, chubby hands in disbelief. These are the hands of an infant. Have I been reborn as a newborn child? Even the strongest man in the world could not help but break into a cold sweat at the thought. It took several seconds before he could steady his breathing. He forced himself to calm down. All right. Breathe. For someone like me, someone who reached the 10-star level, to be dragged into such a bizarre situation without noticing anything. Something is clearly wrong. Who could have done this, and how? As he thought it over, a sudden spark lit up in his mind when he recalled something. Could it be? Because of that fruit, I get it now. The effect of that fruit was not immortality at all, it was reincarnation. I never expected this. But this is incredible. This is a blessing in disguise. Now I can finally witness the absolute pinnacle of martial arts. The moment that idea struck him, our protagonist could not stop grinning from ear to ear. He then glanced around, taking in the scene inside the room, rows of cradles, each carrying a different infant. Given the circumstances, Gilfaz quickly pieced together his situation. Let us see. There are other babies sleeping here. If I am in the annex building, that means I have been reborn into the Eldragon family again. But why are there so many infants packed together like this? Just as that thought crossed his mind, a group of maids entered the room carrying a metal pitcher filled with some kind of red liquid, along with several empty baby bottles. As they began pouring the mysterious mixture into the bottles, Zeke calmly analyzed the scene. These are Eldragon family maids. Judging by what they are doing, it must be feeding time. After all, this place is full of newborns. Unaware of the storm of thoughts inside him, one maid spoke up. Get ready. Yes, madam, another replied. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, they dragged in a goblin and immediately shoved one of the bottles filled with the red liquid into its mouth. The sight left the protagonist completely baffled. Why is there a goblin here? What on earth are they planning to do? As if answering his question, the goblin's chest suddenly turned bright red, glowing like heated steel. A heartbeat later, its chest exploded outright, splattering fresh blood across Zeke's tiny body. He froze in shock. Huh? What just happened? Across the room, the maid spoke again. If we dilute it this much, it should be safe. Go feed them. Yes, madam, the others responded, immediately hurrying over to feed each newborn with the same red mixture. Naturally, Gilfis could not escape the same fate, and because he had already witnessed the goblin's gruesome end, he was terrified enough to practically wet himself. What? They are making us drink this. That is not milk. What is this liquid? It is packed with an enormous amount of power. Feeding something this dangerous to newborns is insane. Regardless of what he thought, the moment the bottle's nipple touched his lips, Zeke's infant body began sucking on it uncontrollably. This enraged Gilfis to no end. Damn it, I forgot I am a newborn. The instant the red liquid slid down his throat, Gilfis realized what it truly was. This is ancient dragon blood. What are these idiots thinking, making us drink something like this? So that is what they meant by dilution. It is for this is bad. I need to spit it out, I already swallowed a bit. But a small amount like this should not kill me. The other babies are spitting it out by instinct. I need to do the same before I explode. But is that really the right choice? He wondered anxiously. But then, a new thought hit him. This is a jackpot. This is my chance. If I absorb all this energy, I could surpass even my past self and finally reach the absolute peak of martial arts. I do not know why this opportunity appeared, but I am taking it. Do not underestimate me. Do not underestimate Gilfis Eldragon. Inside, Zeke roared with determination, even as his tiny body clenched and trembled in agony, enduring the searing pain brought on by the ancient dragon blood. Zeke's eyebrows drew tightly together as he silently fumed. Do not you dare underestimate Gilfis Eldragon. One of the maids gasped when she saw how fiercely he was gripping the bottle. This baby, she blurted out in surprise. Zeke puffed out his cheeks, furrowed his brows, and sucked with all his might, thinking, I will absorb every last drop of this ancient dragon's power. And when I do, I will finally reach the absolute pinnacle of martial arts, the very height I failed to attain in my previous life. Inside his mind, an enormous ancient dragon unfurled its wings and let out an unending, thunderous roar. Its two eyes flashed with golden light as it glared at another dragon before it. Zeke watched in disbelief as the ancient dragon sank its teeth deep into the other dragon's neck. What? This power is being absorbed so easily. No, this is perfect, he realized, awestruck. Outside that mental battlefield, his tiny body rested on the soft cradle, his brow still furrowed as he took in the world around him with deep contemplation. Somehow, I managed to pull it off. He lay there, quietly sensing the faint pulses of energy from the nearby cradles. The other babies survived too. I guess you really should not underestimate the survival instincts of newborns. Damn it. This infant body is a real nuisance. After a long moment, sleepiness washed over him. He slipped his thumb into his mouth and drifted off, unable to resist the overwhelming drowsiness. Time flashed by. 7 years later, deep within a forest, a firm voice echoed through the trees, counting steadily. 998. 999. Zeke was braced against the ground on one hand, a massive boulder strapped to his legs as he performed push-ups. With a sharp exhale, he kicked hard, launching the boulder high into the sky. A split second later, he darted sideways, narrowly avoiding the stone as it plummeted back down with crushing force. The former head of the Eldragon family, Gilfis, now living anew as Zeke Eldragon, lowered his gaze to his own hands in admiration. Still this incredible physique. All thanks to ancient dragon blood. His thoughts turned to the world he now lived in, a world where every living being possessed some form of power. He remembered the bottle from back then, the ancient dragon blood he and the other infants had been forced to drink, a substance overflowing with unending strength. The memory of that colossal energy resurfaced as he pondered. Those children who consumed it. even if only a little. Must have gained bodies far stronger than ordinary humans. Zeke felt the vast power coursing through him and reflected further. Combined with the divine dragon's strength I defeated in my previous life now residing within me, I, Zeke, the only child who fully absorbed the entirety of the ancient dragon's power, have undergone changes so profound that even I can hardly believe it. He closed his eyes, feeling a quiet pang of frustration settle in his chest. Even after everything, he had only managed to reach 1 star. Zeke lowered his gaze to his hands and muttered under his breath, "Only 1 star. This is terrible. By now, I should have at least hit 4 stars. Stars, those luminous points, are the manifestations of power a person gains when pushed to their absolute limits." He focused inward, sensing the energy emanating from deep within his body. The body was like a universe unto itself, filled with drifting celestial lights. The more stars one possessed, the greater the strength they commanded. But with every additional star, creating the next one became exponentially harder. Zeke clenched his fists tightly, lost in thought. In his previous life as Gilfas Eldragon, he had reached 10 stars, a record that had never been matched. He had been the only person in the world to achieve such overwhelming power. He swept his hand back through his hair and murmured to himself, "But time really does fly. 7 years have already passed since I reincarnated as the illegitimate son of the current Eldragon clan master." Zeke thought of his parents and sighed inwardly. "My mother is gone, and my father has never once shown himself. I have my doubts about his qualities as a parent. But more than that." He scratched his cheek and suddenly muttered aloud, "8,000 years later, huh?" The memory of the maids feeding ancient dragon blood to the infants flickered through his mind, as if reincarnation was not shocking enough. But to be reborn a whole 1,000 years after my previous life, before I could even grasp the flow of time I would awakened into, this world had already turned into a place where only the strongest survive under relentless trials. And the best example is that ritual. He recalled the cold, ornate seat of the Eldragon clan and the horrifying practice tied to it, forcing newborns to drink ancient dragon blood. It was a rite known as the Dragon's Trial. Zeke thought of the survivors and mused, only the infants who survive that ordeal are deemed worthy to receive proper Eldragon warrior training. At least, that is how it should have been. He turned his head just as a maid stepped out, clearly searching for him. Zeke stared directly at her and declared, "I am afraid I can't answer that question." He thought back to the past 7 years, 7 whole years without a single instructor or mentor assigned to him. With agitation flooding his expression, he raised his voice at the maid. "Is not it strange? Anyone who passes the trial is supposed to receive combat training, right? But here there are only maids." Hearing that, she blinked in confusion and asked, "Is there something wrong with that, sir?" Zeke stiffened, caught off guard, stammering as he replied, No, there is no problem. But Zeke jabbed a thumb at his own chest and shouted that, right now, physical training mattered far more to him than learning how to fight. After all, that was something he could handle on his own. With one hand planted on his hip, he glanced toward the maid and asked, at the very least, he wanted to know a little about the other children or about the main clan. Did not she think so? She listened and replied with a cold, flat tone that she feared she could not answer that. Zeke frowned and pressed again, saying he was only talking about family matters, nothing more. Did not she understand? She closed her eyes for a moment and repeated that she feared she could not answer. Hearing that, his expression darkened, and he barked, "Is that really all you can say?" The maid frowned as well and, with the same icy tone, repeated once more that she feared she could not answer that. Planting both hands on his hips, Zeke protested loudly, saying that treating him like this felt a bit harsh, did not it? She bowed her head respectfully and explained that their orders were only to attend to his daily needs. He stared at her, thinking to himself that this maid was already at the 3-star level. If all he needed was basic combat instruction, even an ordinary servant should have been enough. A moment later, under her puzzled gaze, Zeke turned around and walked off, muttering that whatever he was heading into the forest. Living together for 7 years yet only having minimal interaction like this was downright bizarre. Right then, he glanced back over his shoulder and asked, almost accusingly, "So you have finally decided to ignore me, huh?" With that, Zeke headed alone into the deep, overgrown forest where no one else was in sight. He reached out, grabbed a small sapling, and yanked it clean out of the ground in one swift motion before stuffing the entire thing into his mouth and chewing with force. He immediately stuck out his tongue with a groan. The poisonous grass still tasted disgusting, absolutely vile, but he told himself it counted as training. He scanned the area, muttering under his breath for patience, just patience. Then he glanced at the brush behind him and whispered that those eyes watching him lately. He genuinely wished he could do something about them. Letting out a slow exhale, he raised his voice toward the woods ahead. Well, I did not expect you to show yourselves over something this trivial. Seriously, if you have got something to say, come out here and say it directly. Right after that, Zeke pursed his lips and hurried toward the source of the sound, pushing aside the bushes with his hand to get a better look. Within the thicket, faint streaks of purple light flickered through the air. He crouched behind a dense cluster of shrubs and whispered to himself that something was definitely lurking over there. Through the leaves, he spotted a boar shrouded from head to hoof in black mist. A thought clicked into place: this was a berserk boar. Zeke frowned, staring hard at the creature, wondering why black mist, something that had supposedly vanished from the world 1,000 years ago, was appearing now. What in the world was it? Suddenly, the boar snapped its head toward Zeke, its entire body seething with black fog as it fixed its gaze on him. A moment later, it charged straight at him with explosive force. Zeke's face lit up with excitement, a wide grin spreading across his lips as the beast rushed closer. At the very last moment, he slipped to the side, dodging its attack. His eyes flashed, and he drew back his fist as golden light gathered around it. He threw a powerful punch, the impact sending the berserk boar flying backward a substantial distance. Looking down at the glow still flickering across his knuckles, Zeke let out a surprised exclamation. How could a casual hit against something of equal 1-star level generate that much force? Without wasting time, he hoisted the boar's carcass over his shoulder and started walking away. The quality of the stars really did matter. Being left unattended like this was getting tiresome. Maybe it was about time he set off on an adventure of his own. Leaving the forest behind, he quickened his pace. If he were to head anywhere, the sea would be his first destination. Behind a tree not far away, a man grasped his staff tightly and wondered what in the world he had just witnessed. Despite having no formal training, Zeke had used 1-star power and taken down a berserk boar in a single strike. More importantly, the boy had sensed his hidden presence. That child was anything but ordinary. Thinking of Zeke, the man reflected on how the boy's mother had died early and his father barely cared. How could Zeke have received any proper education under those circumstances? Even so, as long as the family's blood flowed in him, the boy was never allowed to escape the clan and would always be under watch. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, the man murmured to himself that even if Zeke was born out of wedlock, he still carried the blood of the clan. Was that how it was? Things were going to get interesting from here on. A moment later, his figure instantly vanished without leaving so much as a trace. Elsewhere, at the small home where Zeke had grown up, he tightened the straps of his pack and muttered a question to himself: who were those people? 3 4-star fighters and 1 5-star, all seasoned warriors. What business did people like that have here? Zeke stood outside the door with his ear pressed against the wooden planks, catching the murmurs from inside. Out here in the countryside, the air was clean and peaceful, and the place was quiet enough that even a squad captain would have trouble finding any cracks or hiding spots nearby. It did not seem like these people carried bad intentions. At the very least, it did not feel like an assassination attempt. If that were the case, he pushed the door open with some force and spoke cautiously. What business do you have here, in a place like this? His eyes fell on the insignias pinned to the 2 men's uniforms, and suspicion stirred. The crest of House Eldragon. Had something happened? One of the men immediately stepped forward. Removing his hat, he placed a hand over his chest and bowed respectfully. This must be our first meeting. We are here to escort you, Lord Zeke. You are required to participate in an examination. Zeke froze, eyebrows knitting in confusion. An examination. A heartbeat later, his eyes widened, his jaw dropped, and a sharp cry escaped him. What? Inside the small wooden cabin, Zeke's incredulous voice echoed off the walls. Even though no one has ever taught me anything. Zeke folded his arms, staring up in stunned disbelief. He had not expected this. He was actually back at the main estate. He now stood before the grand, lavish mansion, its sprawling grounds radiating wealth and authority. Not long ago, he had been brought here by envoys from the main house. When the attendants saw the condition he was in, they immediately warned him, "You need to change. You can't enter the estate looking like that." He was genuinely taken aback. He could not enter, were not they bringing him here to live at the main house. He thought briefly of the place known as the Dragon Crypt. It seemed that over the last 1,000 years, House Eldragon had established a specialized educational institute. Zeke recalled what he had once learned. Children born into the Eldragon clan were all expected to enter the Dragon Crypt and were educated at home until the age of 7. Today was the entrance examination. A confident smile tugged at his lips. Well, he did not exactly have any real upbringing or proper instruction. He stood straight, glancing around the courtyard. Then, without warning, he dropped into a crouch and clutched his head in frustration. Even so, participation in the test was mandatory. They had dragged him all the way from the borderlands for this. He could not help thinking back to the moment it happened. Why now, of all times, right when he was planning to leave? All that preparation, gone for nothing. As he remained squatting on the ground, a voice suddenly came from behind him. A boy with gentle blue hair leaned down with a concerned look. "Rangi's, from Ward's Clow village." Are you alright? Is something wrong?" Zeke looked up, confused. "Who are you?" The boy hesitated, flustered. I am Rangi's. "You looked not okay." "So I." Zeke stared at him without the slightest hint of emotional investment. But he noticed the energy radiating from the boy's body. For someone who looked so timid, he was surprisingly perceptive. Zeke abruptly stood and cleared his throat. Sorry about that." He flashed a friendly smile. "You are Rangi's, right? I am Zeke." Then he sighed. "I honestly have no idea what they are planning to make us do." Rangi's hugged his arm nervously. "The exam has not changed in years." But Zeke casually added, "Actually, I do not even know what the test includes. I have zero foundation." Rangi's expression drained of color. "What?" He stared at Zeke in disbelief. How could someone come to the entrance exam without knowing anything? Was this kid insane? He quickly tried to explain. Today's test includes." But before he could finish, a loud shout came from the distance. "Hey, Rangi's, you weak little coward." Rangi's stiffened, turning around in fright. Another boy approached with a punchable smirk plastered on his face. This one was Redden, also from Ward's Clow village. He sneered with open contempt. "What is a pathetic weakling like you doing here? Lost your way? Go home before you get yourself hurt." Rangi's answered in a fluster. "Oh, of course it is for the Dragon Crypt exam." Hearing that, Redden scoffed loudly. "You!" He burst out laughing, clutching his stomach as he mocked him. "No way. There is no way you are getting in. Your dad's a false dragon, is not he? What could the son of a fake dragon possibly accomplish?" Rangi's hands clenched so tightly they trembled, and Zeke noticed it immediately. Within House Eldragon, ranks and hierarchy were strictly defined, established ages ago by the absolute sovereign, the primal dragon. Below him were the true dragon soldiers, the dragon captains, and the high dragon commanders. And at the very bottom were the false dragons, those unqualified to enter the Dragon Crypt or unable to graduate. The title essentially meant immature, incomplete, unworthy. Rangi's lowered his head, anger simmering beneath his timid exterior. "But I want to prove. We are not imposters." Just then, a calm voice cut through the tension. Why are you so sure when no one's even tried yet?" Zeke stepped forward, placing himself between Rangi's and the three boys. Redden glared at him with disdain. And who the hell are you supposed to be? You got a problem?" Zeke smiled pleasantly. "No. Just asking a simple question. Why can't Rangi's do it?" Redden jabbed a finger toward Rangi's. "Because he is weak, obviously." The word made Rangi's flinch weak. Zeke studied him for a moment, then said plainly, "He is actually stronger than all of you combined." Rangi's eyes widened in shock, completely stunned. The boys exploded in anger. "What did you just say? You saying we are weaker than that pathetic loser?" Before the argument could escalate, the sound of heavy footsteps approached. Two men appeared and shouted, "Attention!" They were dragon instructors. One of them spoke sternly, "The entrance examination for the dragon crypt begins now. Candidates will register in order, then proceed immediately with their assigned number tags." Redden clicked his tongue and backed off, but not without throwing a parting threat. "I will remember your face, you bastard." Zeke sighed in exasperation as the boy walked off. He did not need to get that angry. Kids these days get heated over anything. Behind him, Rangiz murmured nervously, "We are the same age." "Right," then he lowered his head a little more. Anyone would lose their temper if they heard someone say, "I am stronger than them." Zeke glanced at him and replied softly, "Is that so?" Zeke crossed his arms and spoke plainly, "But this entrance exam is mandatory, right? So talking about being incapable or anything like that does not really make sense." Rangiz blinked in confusion. "So? You could really just back out, you do not actually know anything, do you?" Zeke shrugged casually. "You could quit. I would not know." Rangiz forced a small, awkward smile. "You would probably be better off quitting, at least that way you won't get hurt." Zeke did not respond further. Instead, he smiled and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Someone of my level could not even quit if I tried," he mused inwardly. Rangiz could not help but be impressed. He was confident, even without knowing the contents of the exam. Zeke chuckled. "All right, whatever. Let us move quickly. If we do not, the exam will start." Rangiz scratched his head. "Ah. Yeah, right." The two of them then moved to focus near the dragon instructor. The instructor explained, "The test is very simple. If you can scratch this stone, you pass. You are not allowed to use any weapons other than what we provide, but you may use your bare hands. Just make a visible scratch on the stone, and that will suffice." He smiled slightly and added, "However, each of you only has 3 attempts." Zeke could not help but exclaim softly. Simple enough, he thought. Rangiz was a bit taken aback. "What?" Zeke reflected silently. "Just scratch the stone, huh? After going through that insane dragon trial ritual, I was expecting something terrifying for this exam. This is anticlimactic." The instructor's voice rang out coldly, "Begin." Immediately, another student rushed forward, striking the stone with all his might. Rangiz instinctively clutched his head in panic. A loud thwack echoed again, but suddenly something shot out, and the student's hand began bleeding. Everyone near Zeke gasped, shocked and horrified. The boy let out a cry and collapsed flat on the ground. The instructor approached, making a note, and asked, "First attempt failed. 2 attempts remain. Do you want to try again?" The boy did not move, and someone nearby smiled. "Consider it a forfeit. Clear the area." They dragged the boy away in front of everyone, and the next candidate stepped forward. Rangiz still clutched his head in fear, while Zeke's expression darkened in anger. "So this is the test," he muttered quietly to himself, staring at the stone. "What is this thing, really?" Rangiz began explaining to Zeke, "It is called Rebirth Stone. Even the tiniest scratch will immediately regenerate. Moreover, if it is struck with pure force, the stone will reflect the attack with hundreds of times greater power." Zeke paused, considering this. "Is not that completely unreasonable?" he thought. Rangiz continued, "However, if you channel your energy correctly throughout your body and strike properly, it can be scratched." Hearing that, Zeke furrowed his brow and began calculating. "I see. From what I have gathered, the martial techniques themselves are far less important than mastering control over one's energy." His gaze flicked around the testing area. Everyone present was tense, eyes fixed downward. It seemed that very few would pass this test, even the ones who had been confident earlier in the morning. From across the area, cries of despair rang out. One boy was so scared he began to cry as his number, 51, was called and he failed. Then another, number 202, also failed. The cards fell to the ground one by one, and the dragon instructor, expressionless, continued recording each result. Next came number 315. Zeke looked up at his card and realized it was his turn. Rangiz, worried for him, whispered, "Hey. Do not you still have the option to quit?" Zeke waved him off as he stepped forward. "Do not worry." Rangiz could only stare, tense and speechless. The dragon instructor pointed toward the testing area, pen in hand, ready to make notes. At that moment, his eyes widened in surprise. From behind Zeke, a powerful energy began emanating. He allowed himself a small, confident smile. The weapons are on the rack, he thought, but I won't need them. Seeing Zeke step into the arena empty-handed, the dragon instructor frowned. Not using any weapons, he asked. Zeke nodded calmly. Yes. Unnecessary. My fists alone will be enough. In the stands, the students murmured in disbelief. He is going in bare-handed. Even if he is skilled at controlling his energy, there is no way he can scratch that stone with his bare fists. He will just shred his hands to pieces. Rangi's turned pale at the thought. No. Forget the fists, he might even blow his entire arm off. He mentally scolded himself. Just as I feared. I probably should have stopped him more decisively. The dragon instructor did not resist either. I understand. Then, begin. As Zeke touched the stone, he silently assessed it. This is the first time I have seen a mineral like this. It must have been formed over thousands of years. There is so much here I still do not understand. But it is fine. He steadied himself. No problem. Then, without hesitation, he swung his fist. Rangi's leapt up in panic. This is not good. I have to stop him, he shouted. Zeke. Meanwhile, Zeke was practically vibrating with excitement. With this, I can release my full power right now. Rangi's could only stare in shock as Zeke made no move to stop. The technique Zeke used was none other than the Dragon Destruction martial art, first form. Critical strike. In the blink of an eye, the stone exploded, chunks of rock flying in all directions. The force was so immense that even students sitting far in the stands were terrified. The dragon instructor stood frozen, utterly shocked. This went far beyond anything he had imagined. Zeke smirked arrogantly. Just as I predicted. Feeling satisfied, he thought, still, this technique is a little beyond what my current body can fully handle. I will need more training. The stands fell silent, no one able to recover from what had just happened. After a moment, Redden yelled in frustration. He shattered the stone. At the same time, Lika praised him. Interesting. Rangi's, however, remained stunned, unable to comprehend what had just occurred. He finally shouted in shock, "What?" Meanwhile, the dragon instructor silently calculated. Impossible. That boy shattered half of a rebirth stone. That is only possible for someone with a 4-star level or higher, and yet this child did it. Doubt filled the dragon instructor's mind. Though he is an illegitimate child, he truly carries the blood of the main family. But that technique. I feel like I have seen it somewhere before. Seeing the dragon instructor still stunned, Zeke spoke up. Excuse me, examiner, may I ask? What is the result of my test? The dragon instructor promptly declared, number 315. Passed. He handed Zeke a gift. Curious, Zeke tilted his head. What is this? At the same time, the examiner whispered, could you hurry up a bit, I still need to clean up the area. Zeke stomped his foot in frustration. Is everyone in this era always in such a rush? Can't they slow down a bit? Rangi's rushed over with admiration in his eyes. Zeke. Amazing, you actually shattered it. Zeke grinned, feeling pleased. Well, that was easy. Remembering the gift, he asked, ah, right. Rangi's, what is this? Rangi's looked up and replied, you were given a recovery potion. Zeke's brow furrowed in confusion. A recovery potion? He asked further, still skeptical. It does not seem poisonous. Do not tell me this is some kind of spirit elixir. In truth, it was the Van Suyen Min Dao, a potion crafted from extremely rare ingredients. More specifically, it contained herbs that only grew in hidden sanctuaries and cores imbued with pure energy from divine beasts and illusionary creatures, monsters so formidable that even defeating them was a challenge. Its effects were remarkable. It could instantly heal not only fresh wounds but even old scars, and it greatly enhanced the user's energy reserves. However, because the ingredients were incredibly difficult to gather and the alchemy painstakingly complex, it was exceedingly rare. Zeke decided to take a sip, curious to see what made it special. To his surprise, the wound on his arm healed in an instant. He stared in disbelief. This really is a spirit elixir. Rangi's explained, I do not know much about spirit elixirs, But the recovery potions prepared by the Eldragon family are definitely far superior to the ones sold publicly. Zeke hesitated for a moment, then admitted honestly, I am definitely impressed. Even serious injuries like these are healed instantly. However, he felt slightly disappointed. It does not seem to increase my energy like a true spirit elixir. Rangiz shook his head. For me, Zeke, you are even more incredible. Zeke muttered to himself, what is he saying now? At the same time, he reflected. No. This is truly the culmination of human knowledge accumulated over more than 1,000 years. Meanwhile, Rangiz continued praising him. You are really amazing. Zeke, you are insanely strong. Zeke replied casually, well, I am aiming to become the strongest. Rangiz's admiration deepened. He says these things so calmly. Below the stands, the sword trials continued. Number 373. Passed. Number 395. Passed. Number 405. Passed. Hearing the results, Zeke silently reflected. The fact that the others had passed was predictable. Next was number 414. Though still terrified, Rangiz resolved himself. It is my turn. I can do this. Zeke shouted encouragement. Hey, why are you so worried? It is fine, stay calm. Do not set the bar too high. But seeing Rangiz preparing, he groaned inwardly. What is he doing now? Rangiz took a deep breath. The dragon instructor signaled, begin. Immediately, Rangiz closed his eyes, raised his nose, and swung his sword. The instructor reminded him coldly, first attempt failed. 2 tries remain. Hold on. This time, you can do it. Rangiz gripped the sword again and struck hard at the stone. The second attempt ended in another miserable failure. He trembled and exclaimed, no way. His friends laughed, clutching their stomachs. Just as expected, being a descendant of the false dragon meant he was still a false dragon. Give up already. At this moment, someone reminded him of an earlier conversation. What did you say just now? Redden jeered loudly, was not it you claiming that Rangiz lying there was stronger than us? The mocking words grew increasingly cruel. Stop babbling. It is ridiculous. The dragon instructor asked, 1 attempt left. Do you want to try again? Rangiz shook like a leaf. I. Unbeknownst to him, Zeke had already stepped beside him. What are you doing? Zeke asked, puzzled, why are not you using the spear, why take a sword? Rangiz could not understand his meaning. The spear. What do you mean? Zeke calmly explained, as I said, why use an inappropriate weapon without any plan? On the stands, students fanned the flames. With your current state, no matter how hard you try, you won't make a scratch on that stone with a sword. Other students laughed along. Are you stupid? His father did not use a spear, he was teaching him sword techniques. A group of other students whispered to each other, yeah, switching weapons won't help anyway. Ignoring all the chatter, Zeke politely asked, instructor, is it against the rules to switch weapons mid-test? The instructor replied nonchalantly, not an issue. Zeke grinned and pointed at Rangiz. See, the instructor said so. Lucky you. Now. He prodded him to ignite his determination. Are you really going to leave it like this? Images from the past flickered across Rangiz's mind. Slowly, he stood taller. No. I will. And he decided to try the spear. Thinking back on the past, my father had never been able to enter the long cavern. Yet he was gentle and caring, always treating Rangiz kindly. No matter whether Rangiz was happy or sad, he had the habit of patting him on the head. He had been called a false dragon and mocked for it. Even so, my father never minded. He raised me with care. He taught Rangiz from the smallest things in life, showing him how to hold a sword and how to use it properly. Returning to the present, in the middle of the plaza, Rangiz silently swore to himself, the person my father raised is not fake. Today, here and now, I will prove it. Though his determination was strong, Rangiz's mind was still crowded with thoughts. He looked down at the spear in his hand, tense, thinking, if I try with a sword again, the result will be the same. Alright, I will trust Zeke, but how do I even use a spear? At that moment, Zeke was beside him, calling out, Rangiz. He pointed toward the resurrection stone. Then he cheered him on. Just thrust straight. Do not overthink it. Just thrust. Encouraged by Zeke, Rengis felt his anxiety ease slightly, though a flutter of nervousness still lingered. He tightened his grip on the spear and muttered to himself, thrust straight ahead. His mind unconsciously recalled the times when Redden had mocked him, and then he remembered Zeke always standing by his side. Rengis thought, normally, if I just thrust straight with a spear I have never held before, there is no way I could scratch the resurrection stone. But how can he say that without even trying once? Though he had only just met Zeke, it felt strangely reassuring. Thinking this, Rengis finally made up his mind. He raised the spear firmly, aimed at the resurrection stone, and declared loudly, I understand. I will try. He reminded himself repeatedly that, because Zeke trusted him, he would also try to trust in himself. With that thought, he charged toward the resurrection stone, the spear in his hand faintly glowing with a soft light. Rengis could feel the power the spear granted him, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He had held a sword before, but never had the flow of energy through him felt so intense. No more overthinking, he thought, shouting as he thrust with all his might toward the resurrection stone. Redden and the others, unaware of what was about to happen, laughed uproariously, mocking him. See, I told you. Just switching weapons won't help him do anything. Time seemed to slow as Rengis's spear accelerated toward the stone. He could hardly believe it. It felt as if the spear had always been a part of his body from the start. The sharp tip of the spear struck at the speed of light. When it pierced through the body of the resurrection stone, dust and debris exploded outward in all directions. Redden and his companions were stunned, unable to believe their eyes, shouting, "What?" The assistant instructor beside the dragon examiner also gasped in astonishment. Oh my! Though the dragon examiner's face remained composed, he still could not help but mutter in amazement, he did not just scratch it. He pierced all the way through. As Rengis's turn ended, Zeke immediately stood and clapped his hands, cheering, "Wonderful, excellent job, Rengis." Rengis remained dazed, still holding the spear, and asked in disbelief, What did I just do?" The dragon examiner recorded the results and announced, "Number 414, pass." Rengis froze, still clutching the spear, stammering, I passed." Zeke put his arm around him, smiling, "Yes, you did it. Just as I thought." After gathering his composure, Rengis's eyes welled with tears of joy as he whispered, "I passed." Overcome with excitement, he hugged Zeke tightly and shouted, "I did it, I really passed." Zeke chuckled, "I told you so." On the stands, two of Redden's companions loudly objected, refusing to acknowledge Rengis's skill. "It is just a coincidence." "That is right, it must be." "Right, Redden." At that moment, the dragon examiner raised his voice. "The entrance examination has concluded." He then glanced at the list of successful candidates in his hands and continued, "The induction ceremony will begin immediately." Hearing this, Zeke turned to Rengis and asked, "Induction ceremony, that is it?" Rengis, pale from exhaustion and excitement, answered honestly, "Yes." "There might be other tests after we start classes." Zeke asked again, "So what do we do now?" Rengis did not know, and gave a vague response, "I guess there is nothing for us to do." At that moment, steady footsteps echoed across the plaza. A dignified procession slowly emerged into the center of the square. Seeing them, the dragon examiner announced, "The leader of the Eldragon clan will give a congratulatory speech for all of you." Zeke's attention was drawn to a man standing silently among the group, radiating an imposing aura. Curious, Zeke asked Rengis, "Who is that dark guy?" Rengis turned pale at Zeke's blunt phrasing but replied truthfully, "That is the clan head." Zeke, completely unreserved, commented straight out, "The clan head, with that face, can't he even look a little cheerful? Ice would probably feel warmer than him." Hearing this, Rengis panicked and quickly covered Zeke's mouth, half pleading, half demanding, "Please, be quiet. Please." Slowly, he removed his hands, still sweating with fear, repeatedly whispering, "Please. Stay quiet." "Okay." Zeke nodded, saying nothing further. His eyes shifted back toward the leaders of the Eldragon clan, quietly pondering. "So. That is the current strength of the Eldragon clan, a few at 7-star rank, a considerable number at 6-star, truly an impressive force." Thinking this, he could not help but mutter in awe to himself. Zeke's gaze shifted once more to the clan head, his brow furrowed in thought. The current Eldragon clan leader, Balza Eldragon, emanated a mysterious aura that immediately drew Zeke's attention. Quietly assessing him, Zeke thought, I would guess he is at 8-star rank. Based on what he knew, such a rank was incredibly rare. 8-star over 1,000 years ago, fewer than 12 people in the entire world had ever reached it. Zeke was not sure how many existed in this era, but thinking this, he did not bother keeping his thoughts to himself any longer and muttered aloud, I do not like him. Hearing this, Rangiz turned to stare at him intently. Zeke quickly reined in his words, mentally reminding himself, he is the father figure here. The other leaders of the Eldragon clan stepped aside, clearing a path for Balza to approach the center of the plaza. The Dragon Examiner raised his voice to announce, everyone, focus. A few words from Lord Balza. Balza strode straight to the central position. When he spoke, his voice was cold and void of warmth. He said simply, strive. Become the flesh and blood of Eldragon. His words radiated a strange, almost magical force, sweeping across the plaza and hitting Zeke with surprising intensity. Everyone seated in the stands was almost lifted off the ground by the invisible pressure. The murmurs and gasps rose up, people whispering among themselves, impossible. I can't breathe. Zeke, however, remained unaffected. His eyes flicked toward Rangiz, who was struggling, turning pale and gasping for air. Concerned, Zeke called out, Rangiz. Looking around, he realized that even the other children were being crushed under the sheer weight of Balza's presence. Frowning, Zeke muttered under his breath, what a terrifying presence. I do not know what happened to this man, but I really do not like him. Once Balza turned and stepped back, the oppressive atmosphere in the plaza finally began to ease. Suddenly, a round of applause broke out. Another man, also a leader within the Eldragon clan, stepped forward, laughing heartily as he continued Balza's address. Indeed, those were valuable words of encouragement. Lord Balza places high expectations on you all. Zeke's attention snapped to him, curiosity piqued. Who is he? The man's deep, booming voice carried across the plaza. I won't waste time with long greetings. Strive, young ones. Finishing his statement, he laughed again, loud and rich, leaving Zeke even more intrigued, wondering just who this man might be. Stepping back, the man casually chatted with the Dragon Examiner. The Examiner teased, really now, you sound so sure of yourself. The man laughed in return, joking, those who worry about trivial things will end up bald, you know. Zeke, observing from a distance, ignored the man's status entirely and silently thought to himself, I do not understand what is going on, but at least the atmosphere has shifted. After the oppressive display earlier, the students in the stands were completely silent, not daring to utter a single word. No one even dared to breathe heavily. Zeke, on the other hand, paid no mind to such trivialities, sitting idly as he looked down at the plaza below. Now, the Dragon Examiner held a list in hand and called out loudly, we will now announce the dormitory assignments. Those whose names are called must move immediately. Hearing this, Zeke turned to Rangiz with curiosity. Are not we all going to the same place? Rangiz explained based on his understanding. No, actually, there are 4 dragon halls. New students are assigned to the main halls corresponding to the east, west, south, and north directions. Zeke nodded thoughtfully. Got it. The Dragon Examiner began calling names. When he reached number 315, Zeke stood up, smiling, and waved goodbye to Rangiz. Your turn, Rangiz said sincerely. Take care, Zeke replied warmly. Yeah, you too, Zeke, Rangiz responded. At the Eastern Dragon Hall, grand classical buildings lined wide, shaded gardens. Holding a note in his hands, Zeke scratched his head and muttered, after 1,000 years, so much has changed. This way. After some struggle and wandering through the hallways, he finally found his dormitory. Relief washed over him as he exclaimed, here it is, oh no, I am late from getting lost. My roommate must have arrived already. He twisted the doorknob and opened the door. Inside, he cheerfully waved and greeted the person there, his tone friendly. Sorry to keep you waiting. From today onward, we are roommates. Pausing for a moment, he studied the person in front of him, puzzled, and asked cautiously, "You are?" Zeke grinned, revealing his teeth, and muttered in amazement, "Seems like we are quite lucky, huh, Rangies?" The blue-haired boy smiled back. "Yeah. I was worried I would be alone. This is really nice." Then Zeke plopped down onto the bed. "So, nothing left to do today?" Rangies stepped closer and replied, "That is right. The training session starts tomorrow." Zeke pursed his lips and murmured to himself. Seeing his reaction, Rangies asked, "Are you even listening? The instructor already said so." Zeke gave a bright smile and thumbs up. "I did not hear a thing." Rangies immediately yelled, "That is not something to brag about." Then he spoke in a more serious tone, "Anyway, we should get some sleep. Training begins tomorrow." Bathed in the soft light of the setting sun streaming through the window, Zeke fell silent, lost in thought. Memories of everything he had experienced flickered through his mind. I had planned to escape this boring house and go adventuring. But that rebirth stone, and that medicine. The entrance exam alone was far more interesting than I expected. Unconsciously, Zeke's eyes drifted toward the window. To truly understand what has changed over 1,000 years, staying with the Eldragon clan a while longer might not be such a bad idea. Time passed quickly. A month later, within the Eldragon clan fortress. On the training grounds, a group of students trembled as they lifted heavy weights with both hands, while someone shouted incessantly, "Listen, the dragon chi I have taught you is the supreme breathing technique created by the 15th generation clan leader of the Eldragon family." The dragon examiner stood solemnly and added in a loud voice, "You must master this technique and be able to use it flawlessly in any situation." As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze turned contemplative toward another direction. Before him, Lika had her eyes closed, performing the technique skillfully, making him ponder. Many students had already gained control over their dragon chi, and the flow of energy from the young lady seemed to overflow, showing signs that she was approaching the second star level. But the dragon examiner's suspicious gaze shifted elsewhere. Toward the boy. Zeke sat on the other side, calmly lifting the weights while also carrying 3 additional large and small stones on his back. What in the world? The boy possessed the blood of a clan leader, yet he had no formal instructor or structured training. The dragon examiner watched from behind, silently observing, but he could not hide his astonishment. What is this scene even? Meanwhile, Zeke breathed calmly in and out, quietly thinking to himself, "I did not expect the Dragon King's chi technique, which I created, to have been modified and widely circulated under the name Dragon Chi." Zeke sat cross-legged, his expression carrying a hint of boredom, while a golden aura swirled around his body. The breathing technique he was using absorbed energy from the air, channeling it into his body and circulating it to naturally upgrade his power. The effectiveness, he knew, depended entirely on the skill and finesse of the practitioner. For this reason, prestigious clans all devised their own methods, and the perfected techniques were guarded as ultimate secrets. Zeke closed his eyes, thinking to himself, "Dragon Chi is safe and easy to learn. But if my goal is merely meditation, I do not need it." The mature silhouette of his previous life suddenly appeared in his mind, the Dragon King's Chi, passed down by Gilfa's Eldragon. It was the only breathing technique that allowed precise control over energy without interrupting one's breath, even while moving. Its effectiveness was tremendous, but few could inherit it due to its extreme difficulty. In his thoughts, Zeke began mapping out the transmission process of this breathing technique. He quickly deduced, they must have deliberately simplified it so that anyone could use it, thereby raising the collective strength of the entire clan. To think that my technique was passed down to future generations in this modified form. It is touching. I wonder if other martial arts over the past 1,000 years were changed the same way. What an exciting thought. From a corner Zeke could not see, Lika silently observed him with curious eyes. Not long after, the children who had finished their training began eating in the dining hall. Amid the lively atmosphere, 2 of the younger kids looked at their hands reaching for their plates with a mixture of fear and awe. Zeke cheerfully opened his mouth wide to bite into the food he had taken, crumbs sticking to the corners of his mouth. While chewing, he asked with casual concern, "What is wrong? You look lost in thought, Rangies. If you do not eat, you won't get stronger, you know." Rangiz, helpless, asked back, "Why are you so full of energy? Your stamina. It is strange." Zeke casually teased, "It is because you are too weak." He pushed the plate of pastries toward him, grinning. "Eat more, train harder, there is no other way." Rangiz, the blue-haired boy, sighed dejectedly. "I see. I guess that is my lot." In the next moment, Zeke cast a quick glance behind him, noting that a few of the kids really were well trained. At that moment, Lika suddenly stepped closer and spoke. "Hey. You are pretty good." "Right, who are you?" Thinking the same thing in his mind, Zeke instinctively replied, "Who are you?" Rangiz, standing beside him, choked on the sip of water he would just taken. "Huh." Rangiz immediately pulled him closer, lowering his voice to explain. "Zeke, do not you know, this is Miss Lika, the daughter of the clan chief." Zeke responded indifferently, "I did not know." Rangiz panicked and shouted, "No way, she is one of the candidates for the next clan chief. Normally, we do not even have the right to speak with her." Zeke, with her face so close, suddenly blurted out, "If that is the case, I am also the son of a clan chief. Even if I am illegitimate." Rangiz froze in shock, his mind going blank in an instant. Meanwhile, Lika, facing him, exclaimed in surprise, "Really?" She maintained a calm expression as she asked again, "You are the illegitimate son of the clan chief, the heir apparent of the Eldragon clan, Lika Typhona Eldragon." Zeke propped himself up on his hands and replied immediately, "Why would I lie about something like that?" Lika's eyes narrowed slightly as she pressed further, "Then why are you strong enough to crush the rebirth stone with your bare hands?" She slammed her palm forcefully on the table as she spoke. "An illegitimate child without backing, how could you even do that?" Zeke, turning back to continue slicing his meat, answered calmly, "Well, that is just me." Rangiz, stop spacing out, eat. His response left Lika momentarily silent. Moments later, she suddenly bared her teeth in a grin. "You really are quite interesting." Lika sat down comfortably next to him and spoke casually. "So, what do you say? Become my subordinate?" Zeke cast her a blank, deadpan look. "Huh, what did you just say?" Lika repeated her offer, adding an incentive. "I am asking if you want to serve under me. I will be your support. Even an illegitimate child like you would want an ally, right?" In her mind, she already imagined the two of them fighting side by side in the future. Lika leaned a hand on the table, smiling as she painted the vision. "Then use your strength to help me become clan chief. Of course, I will treat you well once I achieve it. What do you say?" Zeke closed his eyes and rejected her immediately. "No thanks." Lika's expression suddenly darkened, forcing him to glance at her. "What is wrong? Do not tell me." She exuded a cold, intense aura as she spoke, her anger unmistakable. "You are aiming for the position of clan chief too, are not you?" Zeke sensed the aura radiating from her and thought to himself, is she already at second-tier level? She can emit her spiritual energy beyond her body at this age. Interesting, very interesting, but... He responded nonchalantly, "Do whatever you want. I have no interest in becoming clan chief or anything like that. I do not care about clan affairs." Lika, clearly taken aback, slammed the table and stood up. "What, then what is the point of all this?" Before her words even finished, something suddenly shot past her. Zeke's expression darkened as he drove the knife in his hand forcefully into the tabletop. The position of the knife was only a few centimeters from Lika's fingers. Zeke's eyes snapped open, glowing golden as he declared, "I serve no one, because I am the strongest." Under that gaze, Lika's whole body froze as if struck by electricity. "What?" Her face paled as she thought, "Have I been bested?" At that moment, Rangiz, trembling, stood up to intervene. Calm down." But Lika suddenly shouted with anger, "Then I will make you submit, fight me." Zeke chewed his food absent-mindedly, looking over at her, while Rangiz beside him had gone completely stiff with fear. A little while later, a boy walking nearby glanced back and asked, "Where are you all going?" "To the training ground. There is a match between the new recruits." "And it is with Miss Lika," someone replied. The boy's eyes went wide in shock. "Miss Lika, of the Typhona clan, who? Who is she fighting? How come? Who even knows?" At the training ground, other new recruits who had come to watch hid behind walls, whispering among themselves. "Is that a duel? Who is that guy over there?" Zeke rubbed his head and muttered, "This is going to be tense." Rangiz, worried, asked, "Are you okay? Your opponent is Miss Lika." Zeke, completely calm, replied, "Even if you tell me that, I still do not know who she is. Besides, why are you suddenly speaking all formally?" The blue-haired boy's eyes widened as he shouted, "Of course, you are the son of the clan chief." Zeke chuckled lightly and said, "Ah. Do whatever you want. That is the important part." Rangiz clutched Zeke's arm and rattled off a long explanation. "Please think carefully. Lika is the daughter of the current clan chief, Balza, and she carries the bloodline of the Typhona clan, one of the four pillar families of House Eldragon. She is a prodigy who has mastered every variation of the Great Thunder Sword technique, the Typhona family's legacy, since she was 7 years old, just like the other extremely talented children of Lord Balza." As soon as he finished speaking, Zeke blankly raised a hand and said, "Sorry, the only thing I understand is that she is the clan chief's daughter." Rangiz, panicking, shouted, "What? Why?" Zeke explained casually, "Everything else is completely new to me." The blue-haired boy buried his face in his hands, feeling exasperated. "Why does it have to be like this? Do not ask." But then Zeke suddenly spoke up with a tone of amusement, "The more I do not know, the more interesting it becomes." He grinned broadly, letting out a laugh of astonishment. "This is incredibly fun." Even seeing Zeke's reaction, Rangiz still worried. Ah. No matter how strong Lord Zeke is, facing Miss Lika is far too disadvantageous. Why would he even accept the challenge? Zeke rubbed his chin and replied casually, "Well, if someone issues a challenge, I do not back down." Having said that, he turned his head to look across the field. Beside him, she seemed to have already arrived. Lika drove her sword into the ground, her expression furious and radiating overwhelming presence as she declared, "The idle chit-chat ends here." Lika planted her sword firmly into the ground and shouted, demanding, "Enough chit-chat." Rangiz trembled in panic, while Zeke stood beside him with a faint smile, replying calmly, "Ready. Everything set." Rangiz, still terrified, waved his hands frantically and shouted, Just. Please be careful." Zeke stayed in place, composed, and asked Lika, Careful, that is up to you. Why are you so determined to challenge me?" She answered confidently, "I want to become the clan chief. To do that, I need to make you submit and join me." Zeke sighed, puzzled, thinking to himself, "What does that have to do with me?" Lika's expression darkened. "Wait. Do not you know the current situation of your clan? Oh, right. You are an illegitimate child." He hesitated, "Well, I might know something if you ask directly." Lika immediately explained, "Listen carefully. Including you and me, there are 5 candidates for the next clan chief. Everyone except you has already allied with one of the 4 branches of the Eldragon family." She considered the strength and lineage of each person before continuing, "Which branch will produce the next clan chief is extremely important. That is why all of us are here at the Dragon Halls to represent our branches and compete against each other. I need more strength to stand against my brothers." Zeke frowned, thinking, so it is a showdown between the 4 branches. Complicated. I am not even sure I understand. Then he said aloud, "Got it." Lika drew her sword and continued, "As a candidate for the next clan chief, I must strengthen my resources even further." She declared her intention as she leapt forward. Zeke instinctively raised his head. Alert. Lika lunged at him with her sword raised high, shouting, "Right here. I will defeat you." She swung straight down, but Zeke swiftly dodged to the side. He tilted his head, narrowly avoiding another of Lika's slashes. She shouted in anger, "I won't let you escape." A student watching exclaimed in astonishment, "So fast." Another beside him commented, "She wields that huge heavy sword effortlessly." Lika continued to chase Zeke relentlessly. The observing students whispered among themselves, noting her precise control of her power. Her attacks were only growing faster. This was the strength of a branch heir, the might of a child from the main line of the clan. It was only a matter of time before this duel reached its decisive moment. Lika gritted her teeth, thinking, how is this possible? She swung her sword, but Zeke dodged again. Then, in a swift move, he appeared behind her, grinning teasingly. With a bright smile, he said, "I can't land a single hit." Rangi's eyes widened in astonishment. "Amazing. On the training field, Zeke muttered to himself, assessing Lika. This martial technique. I have never seen anything like it. And with this speed. This is not something you would expect from a first-rank star. Lika shouted in frustration, shut your mouth and focus on the fight. Zeke clenched his fists, replying coolly, I am focusing. That is exactly why. Lika froze, staring at him in disbelief. Without warning, Zeke's fist shot straight into her abdomen. He said coldly, I can counter like this. Lika coughed painfully, clutching her stomach, her sword planted firmly in the ground as she bent over. The students watching from the sidelines whispered in shock. Impossible. Every strike from Miss Lika missed. Who is this guy? Lika lifted her head, gritting her teeth as she demanded, why can't my attacks hit you? For a first-rank star like you, I should have been way faster. I should have outpaced you easily. Zeke smiled faintly. You are definitely faster than most first-rank stars I have encountered. He glanced at her and added, but you are still only a first-rank star. Lika's face darkened with anger. But you are a first-rank star too, you should not be able to keep up with me. Zeke chuckled lightly. It is simple. He observed her movements and explained, breathing, eye movement, muscle tension. By watching these, you can read most of the motions. The rest comes down to experience. Lika straightened, forcing herself up, and swung her sword at him, shouting, how ridiculous. Zeke leaned back, dodging her strike. I told you. Then, planting his hands on the ground, he twisted his body and kicked toward her. She gritted her teeth, furious. Zeke clenched his fist, aiming at her again. I can read you. He struck, sending her flying. Lika slammed into the wall, gasping in pain. Zeke furrowed his brow, remaining silent. A student shouted loudly, Miss Lika. The onlookers whispered in shock, impossible. She actually lost. Miss Lika. She lost. Rangis ran over, exclaiming, Lord Zeke, that is incredible. You actually defeated Miss Lika. Zeke's expression remained cold as he corrected him, no. Not exactly. As the dust settled, Lika stomped her foot, glaring. Zeke smiled slightly, commenting, she focused all her strength into her core to block my strike. Not bad at all. Lika clutched her stomach, gasping for air. Rangis panicked, advising, Miss Lika, that is enough. Zeke interrupted sharply, Rangis, step back. I won't be responsible if you get hit. A faint aura emanated from Lika. Zeke noted to himself, she showed signs earlier. But has she already reached second-rank star? Lika wiped the blood from her face with her hand and slowly stepped back onto the training floor. The students around her gasped in astonishment. Hey! Is not that yes? No mistake, that is a second-rank star mark a white aura. Zeke thought to himself, second-rank star. The state where one can project their power outside their body to use martial techniques. The energy projected like that is called an aura. Lika adjusted her hair and said, thanks. Because of you, I have reached second-rank star, and now. She furrowed her brows, staring intently at Zeke. Raising her sword, she shouted, you do not stand a chance anymore. Zeke dodged her strike and laughed loudly. Fast, I will give you that. Lika swung again toward him, and Zeke feigned amazement. Unbelievable. Suddenly, a small wound appeared on his cheek. Zeke's eyes widened in surprise. What the? He touched the wound with his hand, pondering. I clearly dodged that. Lika stepped closer and said, see. A pale white aura radiated from her entire body as she approached. This is my ability. She raised her sword in front of her chest and continued, now, I have obtained second-rank aura. Yellow lightning crackled around her, and she declared, I will show you the true technique of the Thunder Sword. Zeke stood still, muttering under his breath, so I am about to witness a martial skill I have never seen before. He laughed heartily. This is going to be amazing. At that moment, a flash of light erupted the Thunder Great Sword technique, Thunderlight. Zeke's entire body was surrounded by crackling electricity that surged forward relentlessly. What is this? He smiled and asked aloud, you mean you can control lightning, that is absurd. Lika immediately raised her sword high and shouted toward the one speaking. She slammed the blade straight into the ground, and bolts of electricity shot upward. Zeke quickly leapt into the air, a hint of enjoyment on his face. A lightning net. He smiled down at Lika. This was far beyond what he had seen before. Even now, the bolts of lightning posed a serious challenge. Those watching from above gasped. What kind of battle is this? Just advancing one rank and everything changes this much. Rangus's face was pale with worry as he observed from below. Lord Zeke. Meanwhile, Zeke calmly studied his opponent's weapon and calculated his next move. The motions themselves were fairly simple, not much had changed from before, but he locked eyes with her sharp gaze. The moment she reached second rank and gained her aura, the full force of the Thunder Great Sword technique erupted. I thought she was only faster than before. But now, she is even faster, and that lightning. It is so mysterious. Zeke smiled as he surged forward. She can engulf a person in this storm of lightning. I could counter now, but he hesitated as he watched Lika's sword lines. I am genuinely curious, what is this power really? On her side, Lika grinned with pride. He is still so calm in a situation like this, she thought. Well then. She swung her sword swiftly. I will wipe that smile off your face. Her feet moved quickly, lifting off the ground as she executed her technique. Thunder Light Shift. Zeke dodged to the side, analyzing the move. It is like a pillar of lightning. Then, a massive explosion erupted in the distance, sending rocks and debris flying in all directions. Rangi's, alarmed, clutched the wall and leapt down. Lord Zeke, he shouted. From behind, others called out, wait, hold on. Yet Zeke stood upright, still smiling. To Lika, this seemed like a provocation, and she immediately unleashed another strike, Thunderlight. The impact forced Zeke to plant a knee into the ground to brace himself. Rangis ran forward, shouting, Miss Lika, please stop, if this continues. But her tone turned mocking. Not holding him down at all, she thought with disdain. Lika's entire body crackled with electricity. Does not he realize that stopping now would be humiliating for him? Rangis, still worried, turned to Zeke. Lord Zeke, please. Surrender. If you give up and submit under her command, she will stop here. Zeke lowered his head, a faint smile on his lips, remaining silent. Seeing this, Lika's expression brightened. So even as an illegitimate child, you still carry the pride of the Eldragon bloodline. I see. Fine, then I will finish you with my full strength. She raised her sword high, and powerful bolts of lightning surged forth. The great sword technique, first secret, Celestial Thunder. The lightning struck Zeke's body, forming a towering pillar of light. He was immediately jolted by the electricity, his vision going blank as the crackling thunder echoed around him. Rangis panicked, waving his hands frantically. Lord Zeke. Zeke collapsed unconscious onto the ground, completely still. Lika slammed her sword into the ground with brute force. She turned away, unconcerned. Too bad, but the match ends here. Suddenly, a voice rang out. I understand now. A pillar of light appeared from behind Lika. She spun around, startled. How? How is that possible? How do you have the aura of lightning? Zeke, still smiling, stood upright. Ah. So this is called a lightning aura. He hesitated, then said cheerfully, you want to know how? Folding his arms and adopting a serious tone, he replied, I do not actually know myself. Lika froze, stunned. Zeke continued with a light-hearted tone, I deliberately took your attacks to study this power, but somehow I can use it too. Lika repeated in disbelief, you can use it, that is impossible. In his mind, Zeke mused happily, while taking these mysterious lightning strikes, I have been continuously using my breathing technique, Long King's Breath. When she unleashed all that electricity, the technique reacted to her lightning. My hands began to generate sparks, and the lightning started accumulating inside me. He wiped a smudge from his face, smiling. Before I even realized it, I could manipulate the lightning. I do not know the exact principle, but I must have some unique constitution. No, wait. Zeke looked directly at Lika and continued, if we consider that this great sword technique is a hereditary martial skill of your family, should I assume that your entire family has a special constitution? With that thought, he quickly moved toward her, hypothesizing that his own energy could adapt to the nature of lightning. Yes. This is turning into an excellent training session. Zeke raised his hand, and sparks of lightning appeared, even more than before. He smiled, clenching his fist, his entire body radiating powerful electricity. Thanks to her, I have also reached 2nd star level. But the fight is not over yet. His eyes quickly flicked to one direction. At that moment, Lika suddenly swung her sword toward him. Zeke lifted his head, smiling, and said, "It is not over." Then, lightning flared suddenly as he moved with astonishing speed. After unleashing his new power, Zeke could not help but exclaim, "This is." He analyzed the flow of energy in his mind. Right now, as this power surges, it is affecting every nerve, reinforcing my body. What an incredible, unique constitution. All my senses are heightened. He murmured to himself, I need to get used to this a bit. Meanwhile, Rangiz was still in shock, unable to recover. A battle between candidates for clan chief. Even watching this is hard to keep up with. Am I imagining all of this? The two of them collided, and Zeke easily dodged her strikes. Her lightning-like sword attacks are no longer effective, he thought, astonished. Lika, losing her composure, shouted angrily, "Are you mocking me?" Zeke smiled calmly. "I am not teasing you at all." Then he surged forward, striking straight at her sword. I am truly taking her seriously as a formidable opponent, he thought. Feeling the immense power behind his strike, Lika stepped back, gripping her sword tightly. Zeke flexed his wrists to warm his body and grinned. The right distance. Here it is. It is time to end this fight. It has been a while now. Maybe I will create a new technique. Lika froze, her voice trembling. A technique? Zeke nodded. Exactly. The first technique. No, let us call it a secret technique. At this, Lika's face paled in shock and disbelief. A technique. So he truly has been trained in a secret martial art. Which branch of the clan taught him this, and he created a technique so easily, I just can't understand him. Suddenly, he appeared directly in front of her, grinning. Distracted. Lika gasped in alarm. No. Before she could dodge, Zeke pressed his hand firmly against her chest. Long devastation secret technique. He unleashed his full strength and immediately attacked Extreme Thunderclaw. Lika was struck by the surge of electricity, her knees buckling to the ground. A voice rang out amid Rangiz's stunned expression, "The match is over." Zeke smiled, looking down at Lika with admiration. That was truly an interesting fight. She struggled to stand, disbelief written all over her face. No. It can't be. I have lost. Her teeth clenched tightly in frustration. I absolutely must become clan chief. She gazed up at the sky, her expression heavy with determination. I have to defeat my brothers. Before her eyes, it seemed, her older brothers still looked down on her. I must become clan chief. I absolutely cannot lose. At that moment, Zeke spoke, his voice calm yet sincere. Wonderful. You are incredibly strong. Lika flinched at his words. He leaned forward slightly and continued, I have learned so many new things. This has truly been an extremely meaningful experience. Zeke extended his hand toward her, smiling warmly. With a playful sparkle in his eyes, he asked, it would be boring if this were the only time we sparred. Shall we train together again, Lika? Lika's face flushed slightly, touched, as she looked up at him. Zeke extended his hand toward Lika and smiled brightly. I am really looking forward to the next time. She shook his hand and returned his smile. How could I ever compare to you? I have lost. A few hours later, deep within the crevice, a horde of monsters appeared. A man stood surrounded by the creatures. Balza remained calm, watching as they charged toward him. He furrowed his brow, and his eyes suddenly flared. A violent killing intent surged outward, and behind him, the shadow of a roaring dragon manifested. Balza muttered under his breath, "Dragon's might." He drew his sword and lunged toward the monsters. Balza swung in a wide arc, thinking silently, Dragon Chi Destruction Formation. Technique 1, Origin. Sword energy radiated outward, annihilating dozens of monsters in an instant. Afterward, Balza sheathed his sword. The soldiers behind him immediately rushed forward to engage the remaining foes. The rift's gate slowly began to open, and Balza walked toward it with measured steps. A soldier bowed and reported, Lord Balza, I have something to report. Balza asked, what is it? The soldier replied, Miss Lika has reached the 2nd star level. Balza stopped in his tracks. He glanced at the soldier and asked sharply, and? The soldier hesitated, then continued, reaching the 2nd star at her age is a remarkable achievement. With Miss Lika's talent, by the time she graduates from the Dragon Cavern, she could reach the 4th. No, she might even achieve the 5th star. Balza's expression turned cold. Talent means nothing. Report to me when the girl becomes useful. If you have come just to report something trivial like this, leave. The soldier paused, then added cautiously, but Miss Lika has been defeated. Balza's eyes widened in surprise. The girl challenged one of the older ones. The soldier replied, No, Lord. The one who defeated Miss Lika was a child of the same age Zeke. Balza muttered, surprised, Zeke. The son of that woman. He paused, considering. It makes sense her mother had unmatched martial talent but. Balza turned to the soldier, demanding, still, she died when that boy was born, right? Who could have taught him the techniques capable of defeating a 2nd star warrior? The soldier, recalling Zeke's feat, replied, regarding that. Zeke defeated Miss Lika entirely on his own, without guidance from anyone, and he reached the 2nd star purely through his own strength. Balza issued his command, I understand. Then let us begin the first training session. The soldier looked surprised, hesitating. I mean no offense, but is not it a bit too soon? They have only been learning formal combat for about a month, and most of the children have not even reached the 1st star yet. Balza's voice was cold. It does not matter whether they have trained or not. Death treats everyone equally, and only the strong can survive. Those who can't even overcome the first trial no matter how many stars they have are not worthy of being an Eldragon. The soldier bowed and replied, Understood, Lord. Balza suddenly added, Report this to Freya. The soldier blinked in surprise. Freya, sir. Balza responded, Yes. It is quite interesting that the boy wanted to defeat Lika using only his own strength. He continued as he entered the crevice, Freya will be assigned to oversee the content and entire process. Let her supervise closely throughout the challenge. The soldier immediately responded, Understood. Balza chuckled softly to himself, Zeke. Truly fascinating. The next day, at the training grounds, the students were practicing furiously. Rangiz was also doing his best to improve himself. Nearby, Zeke carried stones and weights on his body, thinking to himself, Dragon Seal combat method. Today's plan, double the weights, 1 large stone, double the medium stones, standing stance. Zeke recalled, just like Dragon Chi, this technique was founded by the 15th clan head. Although it is called a combat method, it is essentially a body enhancement technique, fully designed so even a child can master it with ease. Rangiz walked over, puzzled. Lord Zeke, are not you going to train? Zeke immediately replied calmly, What are you talking about? I am training right now. Rangiz hesitated. No, not physical training. I meant Dragon Seal combat method training. Zeke remained composed, I have already learned it. Rangiz's eyes went wide as he shouted, What, you just learned it and already mastered it? Zeke closed his eyes and said, Of course. More importantly, Rangiz, the flow of your power is going in the wrong direction. Rangiz froze. Zeke dropped the stones and weights to the ground and said, Here. He raised his hand, pointing at Rangiz. Look, turn your body. Rangiz blinked in confusion. I was floating just now, he murmured. Yes. A sudden surge of energy lit up around him. Zeke placed his hand on Rangiz's shoulder, transmitting energy into his body. Once finished, he said, This is the proper flow. Rangiz's eyes widened in astonishment. Thank you. Lord. Rangiz looked at him seriously and said, You have truly mastered it. Just as I expected from Lord Zeke. Zeke bellowed, Do you doubt me? What kind of person are you, anyway? Rangiz, flustered, replied, I did not mean that. It is just. This is the first time anyone besides my father has ever guided me, so I have always been at a loss. He recalled the clash between Zeke and Lika and continued, But, Lord Zeke, you already have martial skills strong enough to defeat Miss Lika, so I thought the Dragon Seal combat method might be simple and even boring for you. Zeke crossed his arms and said, That is not true at all. I am completely impressed by the stability of the Dragon Seal combat method. He thought to himself, after all, my own technique, dragon destruction, is not really suitable for my son. They would find it too complex and difficult. Zeke pondered further. Dragon destruction combat method. Complex and tough, yet it surpasses raw overwhelming power like a constitution. It progresses step by step from the first level to the second, third, and fourth. He pictured an ancient tree alongside a silver dragon. Zeke recalled, there is also the secret technique created from my battle with Lika, and there remains the final form, the one with the overwhelming destructive power from defeating the divine dragon. I am also curious about the other dragon techniques. Perhaps those martial skills have been modified as well. Zeke grinned inwardly, excited. Then he smiled aloud. Anyway, I have completed learning the Dragon Seal combat method, so I am training my body as usual. Everyone will progress at their own pace. Rangiz responded, understood. Suddenly, Rangiz shouted, Lord Zeke. He continued, please train me. I want your guidance, just like before. Zeke's eyes widened as he looked at him. I know this is an embarrassing request, but... Rangiz yelled, I want to become stronger, even if just a little. Zeke smiled. I do not mind at all. Rangiz blinked in surprise. Really, is that okay? Zeke replied, why such a reaction? You are the one making the request. He continued, I am not lying. On the contrary. You deserve it. At that moment, Lika approached, looking slightly embarrassed. In that case, I also want you to train me. Rangiz muttered in astonishment, even Miss Lika. Lika's face hardened as she asked, is there a problem? She explained, honestly, I thought no one my age could defeat me, since I am a candidate for the next clan head. But in yesterday's battle, you completely overpowered me, and somehow deployed your lightning aura and used it even better than I could. She admitted shyly, you completely shattered my pride. Zeke sighed. My fault, huh? Rangiz chuckled awkwardly beside them. Ah, well. Lika looked at him with determination. But I want to become even stronger, strong enough to defeat my older brothers and even you. So please. Train me as well. She asked earnestly, is that all right? Zeke remained silent, lost in thought. Lika's expression flickered with disappointment. Not possible, huh, I understand. She said quietly. After all, you are also a potential heir, so training with your opponent probably would not be appropriate. Zeke stood silently, lost in thought, not responding. Seeing this, she quietly accepted it, reflecting that, indeed, he was a candidate for the heir position too. Even as an illegitimate child, he was still the son of the clan head. After a moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. I do not mind, but your body. Is it truly fine? That injury should have left you unable to move for at least a month. Lika nodded and recounted, I used a recovery medicine, so it is fine. You worry about the strangest things. Hearing that, Zeke leaned close to Rangiz and whispered, I see. That strange medicine works like a miracle. Rangiz responded, if you mean the vial from the entrance trial. That one was not nearly this effective. He pointed toward her and affirmed, given Miss Lika's personality, she is definitely using something stronger this time. Zeke could not help but marvel, what an era to live in. Lika's face flushed red. What do you mean by that? Without the recovery medicine, I truly would not have been able to move for a whole month. But more importantly, so you really will train me. You must also need time to train yourself, right? Zeke shrugged and smiled brightly. Of course. I would never refuse an ambitious young person. Her eyes widened, a question mark appearing in her expression. Young person, you are young too, are not you? Even Rangiz looked doubtful. We are the same age, he murmured. Zeke whistled lightly, well. True. To be certain, Zeke asked again, are you sure, Lika, remember? I am the one who defeated you. If you are determined, it is no problem. I have no right to pick and choose. Lika clenched her fists, her eyes blazing with resolve. Becoming stronger means becoming clan head. I will do whatever it takes. Zeke could not help but wonder. Before you challenged me, you also mentioned the heir position. Why are you so obsessed with becoming clan head? She hesitated slightly, then admitted, well, that is obvious. Lika spoke slowly. If I do not become clan head, Marriage is the only path left for me, a political marriage. If I am lucky, I might become the wife of some annoying cousin. If not, I would be forced to become someone's concubine. Hearing this, Zeke's expression darkened. What? She shrugged calmly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Yes. Preserving the Eldragon bloodline is that important, especially for the 4 great clans. You know that too, do not you? Our original energy and primal power are unique, which means they can be utilized in countless ways. Suddenly, a flame of anger ignited within Zeke. Let us get out of here, he muttered, his voice dripping with disgust. Those bastards. Just thinking about them makes me sick. Rengis, standing beside him, shivered at the intensity of his fury. Clenching his fists, Zeke unleashed a torrent of curses. Who do they think they are? All these damn old customs, these rotten traditions. I will destroy every last one of them. Just as his rage reached its peak, the commanding voice of the instructor cut through the air, stern and authoritative. Focus. Lika, puzzled, turned to him. What is going on? Zeke, deflated, muttered under his breath. Perfect timing. Always at the most inconvenient moments. Rengis looked like he might cry, utterly stunned. The 3 of them turned toward the instructor, who had just issued the summons. With a commanding tone, he announced, starting today, a new lecturer will join us. Despite a busy schedule, he or rather, she has personally come to guide each of you. Be grateful. While everyone was still focusing on the announcement, a girl with vibrant red hair suddenly stepped up next to Lika. She brushed a lock of hair away from Lika's face and asked, "Are you Miss Lika?" Lika jumped and turned to face her. The moment their eyes met, she nearly staggered back instinctively, while Rengis instinctively clutched Zeke tightly. The red-haired girl feigned surprise. Oh my. She winked and praised them. That is an excellent reflex, and your spiritual aura is not bad either. Zeke, being held tightly by Rengis, thought to himself, I did not sense her presence at all. Then, trembling slightly, he whispered, oh my. Who exactly is this person? The dragon instructor raised a hand to introduce her. That is. Before he could finish, someone beside him interrupted. Still as agile as ever, are not you? Miss Freya, she said cheerfully, waving. Hello, it is a pleasure to meet all of you. Freya glanced at Zeke, studying him, and you must be. Zeke, right. He did not hesitate. That is correct. She raised an eyebrow, surprised. You do not seem shocked at all. Zeke replied calmly, for Miss Freya, there is nothing to be surprised about. But. Freya's expression shifted subtly, her brows knitting together. Zeke smirked, his pupils glinting. It seems this young lady is quite an interesting fighter. Freya, intrigued, thought to herself, so that is why the clan head paid attention to her. Across from them, Zeke rubbed his chin, murmuring in admiration. Her stealth technique is truly impressive, but what is even more remarkable is the martial skill she has mastered. Curiosity sparked within him as he observed. The flow of her primal energy was mostly concentrated in her lower body, yet the pattern was unlike anything he had ever seen. No wonder her footsteps made no sound, even in shoes like those. What kind of martial art is this, he thought. Fascinating. Freya pivoted on her heel and walked back toward the instructors, her tone shifting into something more formal. Now then. Despite the change in tone, a warm smile still rested on her lips. As you have all been informed, starting today, I will be your instructor. Let us do our best together. A wave of excitement rippled through the other trainees. Wait, is not that Freya, the wind goddess? No way, she is real, in the flesh. This is insane. The dragon instructor cleared his throat, his voice stern. Miss Freya has already reached the 6-star level. She is one of the key members of the Black Dragon Guard. Everyone should learn everything they can from her. The students immediately huddled together, whispering in shock. The Black Dragon Guard. Is not that the clan chief's personal guard? Why would someone like that appear here all of a sudden? One bold child raised a hand. Madam Freya. Will you truly be the one training us? She smiled brightly. Of course. The children barely had time to celebrate before she added, but. She emphasized her next words clearly. Only if you pass my test. It felt like thunder cracking above their heads. The entire group groaned all at once. A test, already. Freya pulled out a shimmering spirit stone and tried to reassure them. Do not worry, it is quite simple. All you have to do is keep this stone intact. And survive in Poison Dragon Mountain for 1 month. Rangi's jaw dropped. Poison Dragon Mountain. Even Zeke perked up. That name. Definitely familiar. Poison Dragon Mountain, a region crawling with venomous, lethal creatures. A place where brushing against a patch of grass that looked harmless could be fatal. It was, without exaggeration, a land of death. Zeke remembered it well. In my previous life, I trained there often. I even tasted a few types of fruit out of curiosity. Gave myself goosebumps. Absolutely disgusting. But for kids like these. Is not it a bit too early? Freya continued with a warning. If your spirit stone breaks or goes missing at any point, you will be immediately disqualified. A trembling child raised a hand. And if we fail, what will happen to us? She smiled sweetly. Naturally, you will be expelled assuming you survive. Freya explained, poisoning can be handled easily with proper use of the dragon breath technique. As long as you keep your stone intact, everything will be fine. Simple enough, right? Lika raised her voice. But madam, there are monsters there. Freya blinked dramatically. Oh dear. Then she clasped her cheek with one hand, speaking as if it were obvious. Well, then just defeat them. Otherwise, you won't even have food. And in that case, you will die long before the test ends. The young trainees were completely shaken. What, the dragon slaying technique can really handle creatures like that? Freya simply smiled and raised 5 fingers. You still have 5 days before the real trial begins. During those 5 days, each of you will choose a weapon from the Eldragon clan's martial foundations and begin training. She angled her body and pointed at a long table behind her. When it comes to dealing with monsters, survival will be much easier. But if you can't master your chosen martial technique within 5 days. Her voice dropped, suddenly heavy. If you fail to grasp the technique before the test starts, then I won't be responsible for anything that happens afterward. Someone timidly raised a concern. If things get too dangerous, you will help us, right? She flicked her hand dismissively. Oh, please. Freya's expression chilled, radiating the authority of a true instructor. This is Eldragon. The weak are eliminated. Only the strong survive. If you can't defeat the monsters, the outcome is obvious, is not it? If you can't even get through a simple test like this, then you might as well go lie down and sleep among the poison and the beasts. A wave of cold sweat swept through the children. Meanwhile, the 3 behind Zeke, Lika, and Rangis each wore their own bewildered expressions. Zeke felt utterly confused. This place is nothing like the Eldragon I knew. A hazy memory rose in his mind when he was still Gilfas, proudly lifting his tiny son to show him off. Father, look, this is your grandson, is not he adorable? But now, standing here, he could only freeze and wonder, what happened to this place? Freya clapped once, sharply. That is enough talking. I will now hand out martial manuals for each weapon type. Come forward and take the manual for the weapon you want. The line formed immediately. Everyone looked lost. What are you choosing? I do not know, what should I pick? Rangis anxiously bit his fingertip. What do I do? What should I choose? Zeke stepped forward, reminding him, Rangis, choose the spear. You used it during the entrance exam, did not you? Rangis let out a long exhale. Right, yes, thank you so much. Not far away, Lika was still hesitating. She noticed the basic level lightning spirit greatsword technique and reached for it, but Zeke stopped her. Wait, Lika. She turned, puzzled. Zeke advised calmly, you should choose swordsmanship. Me, why? He waved a hand casually as he walked away. It will compensate for what you are lacking. Lika did not fully understand, but she nodded. If you say so. Then I will take this one. After everyone finished choosing, they gathered again. You all have your manuals, yes? Freya asked. Good. For the next 5 days, until the trial begins. Her eyes sharpened. If you want to survive, train as if your lives depend on it. Because they do. Otherwise, just die. The children blanched with fear. Zeke alone looked completely unfazed. Freya suddenly added, "Oh, right, one more thing. The upperclassmen from the Rite of Reverence will also be trying to steal your spirit stones." Rangis gasped. Zeke, on the other hand, grinned. "Now that is more like it." Freya explained, "The upperclassmen from the 10th year cohort will also participate in the trial. Their task is to take your spirit stones. But since there are more of you and the Deadly Dragon Mountains are vast, you probably won't run into each other." She paused briefly, then added, "That said, they will definitely hunt you down, so give it your very best effort." With that, she waved her hand and departed. Rangis turned pale and clutched his head. "What? Not only monsters, but even the upperclassmen will attack us." Lika frowned, her expression tense. "The 10th year students are all at least 2-star rank. Even I could not withstand an ambush from them all at once. Most of the others would not stand a chance." Zeke stretched calmly, unfazed. Lika's frustration boiled over. "Hey, you," he interrupted with a casual suggestion, "if you can't handle it alone, then form small teams of 2 or 3. Working together to hunt monsters is not forbidden, right? The more people, the better." Lika nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense." Rangis hesitated before asking, "Master Zeke, what will you do?" He smiled, clearly amused. "Me, of course, I will enjoy the challenge on my own." Rangis' eyes widened. "Enjoy?" Lika bit her lip, concerned, but then thought, even alone, maybe he actually can handle it. Zeke cheerfully began walking. "Come on. Before training begins, let us find something to eat." Lika was speechless. "You really are a strange person." Rangis nodded in agreement. "Yeah. Sometimes, that is true." 5 days later, as the sun peeked over the mountain ridges, the first rays of light pierced through the treetops, awakening the still slumbering forest. All the trainees had gathered, their nerves taut with anticipation for the coming trial. Freya stepped forward and announced, "All right, what a perfect day for a test. Everyone's here, so let us begin." At the designated campsite where tents were being set up, Rangis gripped his spear tightly, whispering to Lika with a hint of fear, "Finally. It is the day of the test." Lika, caught between anxiety and apprehension, simply nodded in response. Watching the other students busily pitching tents and carrying supplies, Rangis began to ramble nervously. "Even though Master Zeke said it is fine, is it really okay for me to go along with Miss Lika like this? After all, there are so many students in this class who come from more distinguished noble families than mine. I am just a commoner, and I have not even reached star rank yet." Despite pouring out his worries to Lika, his hands trembled and fear visibly shook him. At that moment, a blonde boy and a blue-haired girl approached from behind. Hearing all of Rangis' anxious ramblings, the blue-haired girl was the first to speak up in reassurance. "We are all in the same boat, Rangis." Rangis instinctively turned around and, seeing the two of them, his eyes welled up with tears. "Celine. Raymond," he called out joyfully. Celine glanced at Lika standing beside him, a mix of excitement and embarrassment on her face. "I still can't believe that a commoner like me gets to go with Miss Lika." Raymond remained silent but nodded in agreement with Celine's words. Lika looked at the three of them, Rangis, Celine, and Raymond, and encouraged them warmly. "It does not matter whether you are noble or common. I am going with you because I value everyone's abilities." Hearing this, Rangis tightened his grip on his spear and simply replied, "Understood." His tone was serious, full of determination. "I will do my best and won't become a burden to anyone." Inspired by Rangis' strong resolve, Raymond also vowed, "I will put in all my effort so as not to disappoint you, Miss Lika." Lika smiled, praising all three of them. "Good. I am counting on you." She then turned to ask Zeke, "But you really are going alone, Zeke?" Zeke responded confidently and loudly, "Of course. I can't wait any longer." Celine and Raymond, having already heard news about Zeke's identity, looked at him with admiration. Celine could not hide her awe. "Amazing. I have been worried all this time." Beside her, Raymond felt the thrill of standing alongside royal blood. "So, this is what it feels like to share a royal lineage." Hearing Raymond's words, Lika loudly protested, "Do not lump me in with him. I am scared too, you know." Zeke, momentarily taken aback, asked innocently, "You are scared? Why worry, are not you and all the other top students gathered here together? Hearing him speak as if it were no big deal, the three Celine, Raymond, and Rangiz fell silent, unable to respond. They all shared the same unspoken thought. There are plenty of reasons to be nervous, Master Zeke. Shifting the topic, Lika teased him. Do you really think they have what it takes? Zeke smiled faintly, but his tone remained serious. Of course. Observing Raymond and Celine, whom Lika had chosen for her team, Zeke could not help but genuinely admire her judgment. She had successfully gathered the most promising students from the class, and just from the way she looked at them, it was clear she had an eye for potential. He thought to himself with certainty, their defensive and offensive capabilities are excellent. Her test will be relatively easy. Though he was accustomed to Zeke's calm demeanor, Rangiz, at this moment, could not help but mutter in mild awe, of course. Master Zeke is always this confident. At that moment, Freya and the other instructors approached. She casually called out, "All right, everyone, present and accounted for." Then, as she scanned the students, she commented with a hint of amusement, "Oh. So some of you decided to form teams. Not a bad choice, especially for those who have not fully mastered their weapon skills yet." The moment her voice rang out, all the students turned attentively to listen to her instructions. After a brief check, Freya held up a spirit stone for demonstration. "Shall we begin? Does everyone have their spirit stone?" As she lifted the stone, she announced the rules of the test. The students' task was to survive for an entire month in the deadly Dragon Mountain, while keeping their spirit stones intact. Once the test ended, if their stones were still in their possession, they would have completed the challenge. She emphasized that all the spirit stones were identical. Hearing this, the students tensed up, whispering nervously among themselves. Standing amidst them, however, Zeke remained silent and contemplative. In the gaps of the rules, he had already formulated a loophole in his mind. If a stone was lost, he could simply steal another one. Freya continued to explain the details of the trial. Once the students reached the mountain and found their hiding spots, the senior students would begin attempting to take the spirit stones from them. While she was speaking, two boys whispered confidently to each other. "Most of them have not even reached first star rank yet, right?" one asked. "This is going to be a piece of cake," the other replied. Hearing about the grueling challenge, the rest of the students froze, overwhelmed with fear. Finally, Freya concluded her briefing. "That is the explanation of the rules." Now she signaled the start of the test. The moment she finished speaking, all the students swiftly dashed toward the mountain, ready to begin their trial. Lika ran with the crowd, but she did not forget to glance back and call out to Zeke, "Zeke, you have to survive." Zeke simply nodded, then sincerely replied, "You too." Lika shouted to the three others, Rangiz, Celine, Raymond, "Let us go, everyone." All three responded in unison, "Yes," and hurried to follow her. At this moment, Zeke still stood leisurely beside Freya, casually waving goodbye to them. "Take care," he called out. Freya, seeing this, furrowed her brow in confusion. "Are not you supposed to go as well?" Zeke, reminded by her, muttered to himself, "Ah, right. My apologies, I got a bit distracted." Freya looked at him skeptically. "Distracted? You are not worried at all." Zeke threw an arm over his shoulder with nonchalance and replied, "There is nothing to worry about." "Now, if you will excuse me, instructor," he said, then strolled off at ease. Freya watched him go, a little dumbfounded, muttering under her breath, "What a strange boy." Night fell. The stars glittered high above. At the foot of the mountain, all the instructors remained on watch, unwilling to rest. Some fidgeted anxiously, wondering silently if the students would be all right. Freya's voice cut through the tension, cold and measured. "And what about you, dragon instructor, what do you think?" The dragon instructor answered seriously, "This test might be a bit premature for the new students." Another instructor beside him chimed in, "Indeed. They have grasped the basic knowledge, but only a few have even achieved star rank, and their real combat experience is still lacking." He paused, shrugging with concern. "I wonder how many of them will make it through." Freya responded lightly, her tone calm, "Do not worry. The deadly Dragon Mountain has countless poisonous creatures, but their number and strength are not the real problem. Most of them are only first or second star rank, and as you can see, the students are basically capable of handling them." The two instructors exchanged glances but did not question further. The dragon instructor quietly acknowledged, understood. Freya smiled mysteriously and murmured almost conspiratorially, still. I will release that little surprise at the very end. The dragon instructor caught a fragment of her words but could not make out the meaning clearly. He hesitated, then asked, "Excuse me, instructor, what did you just say?" Freya quickly shifted her expression into a casual smile. Nothing at all. At that moment, she turned her attention to the selected elite students from the upper classes. All right, it is time. Go, she commanded. Under her orders, they immediately entered pursuit mode, sprinting up the mountain with relentless determination. Freya brushed a stray lock of her hair that fluttered in the wind and murmured lazily, "Let us see. How many of them will survive? I am really looking forward to this," she thought. The upper-class students dashed through the dark forest, moving swiftly and silently up the mountain. Suddenly, along the path, one of them spotted someone and whispered, "Hey. You there." It turned out to be Zeke, who was calmly standing beneath a tree. The first student grinned quietly, "I have found someone already." Then another student noticed Zeke as well. With a sneer, he mocked him, "After all this time, he is still just hanging around in one spot, what an idiot." The first student, who had spotted Zeke, quickly ducked behind a bush and knocked an arrow, aiming directly at him. The arrow shot forward like lightning. Zeke, completely unfazed, stepped calmly to the side. With precise timing, he caught the arrow in his hand. Gently, he snapped the arrow in two and let out a wild, maniacal laugh. "I have been waiting for you all," he bellowed. The three students froze, shocked that he had seen them, and even more stunned by his actions. One muttered in confusion, "What kind of crazy thing is he saying?" Another gasped in disbelief, "Wait. Did not he just stop that arrow with his bare hand?" Without a word, Zeke surged forward toward them. Laughing with delight, he shouted decisively, "Now. Let the game begin." A series of rustling sounds echoed through the forest, and suddenly, a monstrous creature emerged. Celine frowned and swung her sword fiercely. She thrust it straight into the creature's body. But at that exact moment, another monster appeared behind her. "Celine, behind you." Just as it attacked, Raymond leapt in, using his shield to save her just in time. Then he furrowed his brow and swung his shield again. With a powerful thrust of the shield's edge, Raymond struck the monster, sending it flying skyward. On the other side, Rangiz had just finished off another creature. As everyone took a brief pause to catch their breath, a voice called out, "All right, is everyone okay?" Rangiz quickly lifted his head and replied, "Miss Lika, we are fine." Immediately, he was taken aback by the pile of spoils beside Lika. Just as the rumors said about her, while everyone else was screaming and scattered in panic, she had already taken down countless monsters. Lika proudly held up 2 fingers. "Well, I have reached my rhythm. It is nothing, really. More importantly, a week after the test started, you all have grown quite a bit too. Celine and Raymond have already reached first star level." Celine smiled lightly. "Thanks to Miss Lika's help." Raymond nodded in agreement. "Thank you, miss." Rangiz stood to the side, glumly observing them. They had already reached first star, and yet he still had not. Noticing his look, Celine quickly reassured him. "Rangiz, you have grown a lot too. You will reach first star soon." Raymond nodded. "Do not lose patience." Rangiz gave a wry smile. "Thanks, you too." From a short distance away, Lika approached and unexpectedly praised him. "Taking down a tree frog monster all by yourself, that is impressive." She continued, both encouraging and reminding him, "Besides, you have been training with Zeke before the test to refine your spear skills. Do not worry, you will reach first star soon." Rangiz, touched, called out, "Miss Lika." At that moment, Lika glanced up at the sky. "All right, it is getting late. Let us head back to the base." Celine immediately agreed. "Right, it is really dangerous out here at night." The sun gradually sank behind the mountains, painting the forest in the warm glow of twilight. Not long after, night fell, and a thin layer of mist began creeping through every corner of the forest. The group, carrying their spoils, made their way back when Rangiz suddenly called out, "Miss Lika." Lika furrowed her brows in alertness. "You. What are you doing at our base?" No sooner had she finished speaking than a pair of legs emerged from the forest. Instantly, everyone tensed and drew their weapons. What the? A tall young man, a sword at his side, stepped forward with a gentle smile. Finally. I have found you. Lika gripped the hilt of her sword tightly behind her back and spoke, confirming, you are from the 10th year class, right? You have come to steal the crystal, have not you? The senior straightforwardly admitted, exactly. Seeing the smiling face of that upperclassman, one of the 4 observers thought to himself, finally, the upperclassmen have started attacking and he is a 2nd star level. Then he unexpectedly added, of course, this is part of the test. Though I did not expect it to be Miss Lika's base. Meanwhile, Lika coldly pointed her sword at him. Then why did not you turn back? You can't harm us by yourself. The upperclassman's expression suddenly darkened for a fleeting moment before he casually retorted. Who said I had to go alone? Just as Lika turned her head, she noticed another unfamiliar pair of feet approaching. The blonde girl could not help but think anxiously, 3 2nd star levels right behind them. One of the newcomers suddenly spoke, drawing his sword at the same time. Even for Miss Lika, carrying 3 extra weights like this will be quite difficult. So. He frowned and shouted, surrender the crystal, now. In the next instant, another attacker swung his sword down where Lika had been standing. Fortunately, she leapt just in time to dodge the strike. The blonde girl hovered mid-air, shouting, everyone. Celine, from another corner, had already engaged in combat with a 2nd star youth, struggling to hold her ground. Raymond, on the opposite side, was no exception. He held up his shield defensively, bracing for impact. Rangiz gripped his spear with both hands, trying to fend off a relentless series of attacks from his opponent. The enemy continued striking while shouting, come on, hand over the crystal. In this tense moment, Rangiz's mind drifted. What should we do now, in this situation? At some point, Zeke, wearing a puzzled expression, spoke up. What, you are asking how to take down a strong opponent? Rangiz clutched his knees and replied, yes. I have not reached any star level yet. So when a powerful enemy appears, I want to know what I should do. Zeke stroked his chin, thought for a moment, and suddenly said 2 words, give up. The blue-haired boy jumped in surprise. What? Zeke calmly explained, think about it right, for someone with no star level, facing a 3rd or 4th star opponent is completely impossible. Rangiz stared at him in disbelief. No way. Zeke continued, still, with 1st or 2nd star opponents, it is manageable. Rangiz, slightly surprised, turned to look at him. Zeke added, you are worried about the upcoming test, right? If my memory serves, most of the monsters in the Dragon Venom Mountain are 2nd star level. I have heard that the upperclassmen attacking us are mainly 2nd star too. In that case, there is still a way. Rangiz suddenly knelt seriously in front of him, as if awaiting instruction. A way. Zeke held up 2 fingers. Nothing new at all. Under Rangiz's bewildered gaze, Zeke smiled and revealed the secret. Exploit the opening, that is all. An opening, Rangiz repeated, still unsure. Zeke nodded in agreement. Yes. You can take down a 2nd star opponent. Even someone without a star level like you can turn the tables if you find their opening. Me, for example. Rangiz asked seriously. But how do I strike the opening? Zeke replied immediately with just 2 words, endure it. Endure it and keep enduring. He tilted slightly, a mischievous smile curling at the corner of his lips. Keep taking the hits until you see the opponent's weakness. The blue-haired boy jumped back in shock, shouting, what? Zeke calmly turned the question back to him. Why so surprised? You're facing an opponent stronger than you. Do you really think a weakling like you can do anything? Rangiz clenched the pants he was wearing, thinking, that is true. But can I really endure it? Zeke corrected him immediately, it is not about whether you can endure, it is about enduring. If you do not, defeating a strong enemy is impossible. Those words seemed to awaken something in Rangiz. He fell silent for a moment, reflecting. Zeke glanced at him and continued his guidance. For a special opponent like Lika, a girl with unique electric abilities, with your current strength, you can endure a 2nd star level opponent. Do not worry too much. Rangiz lowered his head slightly and murmured, I think so. Zeke interrupted bluntly, Rangiz, you are still too insecure. He fixed his gaze on the boy and lectured, "Believe in yourself. That is an essential factor for becoming stronger. Understand? I understand. I know." But Rangi's began. Before he could finish, Zeke cut him off sharply. "Then let me give you one more piece of advice." With a bright smile, Zeke said, "Do not overthink any one problem." Under Rangus's unblinking stare, Zeke went on, full of philosophy. "You do not need to worry about finding the opening or comparing all the different powers. All you need to do is hold your spear tightly in battle, ready to strike at any moment. Be patient. Wait for your opponent to reveal their opening, and thrust your spear straight into it. That is it." The blue-haired boy knelt on the ground, stammering as he repeated the words, "Thrust." "With the spear." Zeke nodded. "Exactly. That is the secret to defeating a strong opponent." Back in the present, Rangus's opponent could not help but mutter in astonishment, "This guy is stubborn." Meanwhile, Rangi's thought to himself while defending, "That is right. I am weaker than him now, so I have to endure and wait no matter what until the opening appears." Though his entire body trembled, Rangus's face remained resolute as he tried to block each incoming strike. The opponent suddenly cursed loudly. "Damn it." Then he leapt into the air, preparing to strike at the blue-haired boy from above. "Die." At that moment, Rangis furrowed his brow with a determined gaze. He gripped his spear tightly and thrust it forward. A green star suddenly appeared at the center of the swirling vortex in his eyes. With full strength, Rangis drove the spear straight toward it. In reality, he struck the second star youth squarely in the abdomen, sending the sword from the young man's hands flying away. "Got you." Dazed and on the verge of losing consciousness, the young man muttered in disbelief, "Impossible." Moments later, he collapsed entirely, unconscious, before Rangis, who was panting heavily from exertion. The star on Rangus's chest glowed even more brilliantly than before. Meanwhile, Lika furrowed her brow and charged forward, sensing that Rangus's side of the battle had been resolved. The older opponent suddenly shouted in panic, "No. This can't be. I am with the other second stars, but..." As he tried to defend against Lika's attack, he gritted his teeth and hissed, "Why is there such a disparity?" Lika's mind suddenly recalled a book with an axe symbol. She thought to herself, "Because I have been training in axe skills, I need to channel more energy into the weight of the weapon. That is why Zeke suggested focusing on axe techniques earlier." Golden sparks of electricity suddenly radiated from Lika's body, aimed at the opponent. His face turned pale in horror. "No." In the next instant, Lika unleashed a surge of high-voltage electricity, tearing the older student apart. "It is over." After he fell to the ground unconscious, Lika quickly spun around and returned to her group. As soon as she arrived, she called out anxiously, "Is everyone okay?" She noticed Rangis beside her, his eyes shining brightly like twin headlights. The next moment, all four of them cheered in exhilaration. "We did it." Celine beamed and said to Rangis, "Congratulations on reaching second star, Rangis, you did it." Rangis, overwhelmed with emotion, replied, "Thank you both. I am really happy." Lika stood to the side, smiling softly to herself. "Now everyone has reached their star level. We can fight opponents of equal rank with confidence." Yet she suddenly turned away, murmuring to herself, "I wonder how Zeke's doing." At the same time, in another part of the forest, the sounds of movement continued through the treetops at night. A young man with his hair tied back was sprinting frantically, as if running from something. He cried out as he ran, "Do not come here, stay away, damn it." "What is that thing?" Suddenly, Zeke's silhouette appeared, trampling over the young man's companions. "What kind of monster is that?" A girl and two students stumbled out of the forest, crying in panic. "Help, do not come near me." From another direction, a figure lightly grabbed the collar of someone else. "What is wrong with you, you monster?" It was Zeke. He was grinning triumphantly, holding two students by their collars. "What is this? No one wants to play with me anymore." Zeke did not speak a word. He just laughed gleefully, thoroughly enjoying himself. The students in front of him fled in a frenzy, not daring to look back. "This guy is insane. Why is someone from the lower class hunting the upper class? Are not we supposed to be the hunters?" While running, one blue-haired boy tripped, his round face hitting the ground hard. He scrambled to his feet, inching back in fear. Damn it. My foot stuck. Zeke's tall, imposing figure advanced slowly, exuding an aura of pure terror. I am tired of this boring chase. A sinister smile spread across Zeke's face. His eyes rolled wide, and he extended a hand as if casting a spell. Come on. Stand up. Come fight me. The boy's eyes widened in sheer panic. No. He seemed to lose all control. His eyes rolled back completely, his body trembling as Zeke effortlessly lifted him into the air. The boy exhaled as though he were about to pass out, his face drained of all life. Zeke looked at him, helpless, muttering, "Oh, man." From behind, Zeke saw the boy lying unconscious while the others continued running. Anger flared in him. Seriously. Why are you all so cowardly? Were not you all eager to fight at first? Do not leave me here alone. Lowering his arms, Zeke glanced around, considering his next move. All right. Maybe you should observe a little more closely. With that, he was left alone, standing there amid the ethereal forest, gazing at the surroundings. The path I am taking seems fine. Then I can just enjoy myself. Suddenly, a foot appeared, stepping out from behind a tree. It was a police officer cautiously peeking around, his face filled with worry and confusion. What is this? He carefully advanced deeper into the forest, weaving through the undergrowth and scanning the area. He could sense Zeke's presence after noticing the formidable upper-class students. Suddenly, he froze, standing there as he rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I have to report this. Right in his line of sight was the blue-haired boy sprawled on the ground from earlier. From the darkness, Freya appeared with a gentle expression. He is back. Report to me. The team of soldiers, who were her subordinates, immediately understood the command. One of the three spoke up, "Yes, madam." 1 week after the start of the test, approximately 30% of the 7-year-old students have been eliminated. However, the remaining students are gradually adapting. The police officer stood solemnly, continuing his report. I believe this number will not decrease significantly from its current state. Freya, upon hearing this, asked, "Is that so? What about the upper-class students?" The officer hesitated for a moment. The upper-class students. He glanced at his two teammates with a weary expression. Freya pressed, "What is it? Speak clearly." Finally, he answered firmly, "They are running away." Freya's curiosity was piqued. Running away. The upper-class students, what could they possibly be running from? She glanced at one of the officers and hesitated. There should not be any monsters on Doku Long Mountain that would make them flee. The officer replied seriously, "It is that student, madam." Her eyes widened in shock. What did you just say, that student? Zeke, with his fierce presence, had already terrified the other students into scattering. He was actively attacking the upper-class students. At first, they had tried to resist, but now all of them were fleeing. Among the officers, one suddenly spoke loudly, breaking the tension. Who exactly is this Mr. Sieg, and he is actually sending the upper-class students running? I have never heard of such a thing. Another officer, his hair neatly tucked, calmly remarked, I agree. That boy, and even the clan leader. No, rather, I should say. In their minds, Zeke was someone terrifying. His eyes blazed with intensity, his aura exuding immense power. He was no longer just a prodigy. In truth, he was almost like a monster. Freya pressed a finger to her cheek, her gaze shifting elsewhere as she recalled his demeanor. He is truly strange. He deliberately chose to act alone, setting off calmly and unexpectedly. Could it be that from the very beginning, he was not the one being hunted, but the one doing the hunting? At that moment, Zeke wore a bright smile, his eyes far from innocent. So, like a monster, it seemed. Suddenly, from another direction, a sound echoed, startling one of the female officers. The sound was Freya, however, stood calmly with her coat draped over her shoulders, showing no trace of surprise. Oh, he is here already, I have been waiting so long. A burly man appeared, pushing something heavy toward her. Miss Freya, where should I put this? She directed him with ease. Just place it there. You have worked hard. Every officer on the team froze, mouths agape, their eyes wide with shock. What is that? Miss Freya, do not tell me. Are you planning to release that into Doku Long Mountain? Its power reaches 3rd star. With the children's current strength, there is no way they could handle it. Freya remained unperturbed, her face bright with a cheerful smile. Do not worry, it has been specially adjusted. The officer with the hair over his nose stared at her, eyes narrowing. Adjusted. She simply smiled, brushing it off. Yes. This creature will only attack those who have reached 2nd star. Zeke and Lika are the bright factors mentioned. Ordinary students won't be significantly affected. A voice from the back interjected, I see. But why did this? Freya calmly extended her hand and replied decisively. It is an order from the clan leader. At that, the officer froze mid-step, his face breaking out in a cold sweat. From the clan leader. Inside a cage with iron bars, a mysterious creature with glowing red eyes had been brought by the burly man. Now, let us see how he handles this. He is strong enough to be called a monster even by seasoned veterans. I wonder if he can deal with this. Freya's expression suddenly darkened, a shadow passing over her features. She tilted her lips into a sly, almost sinister smile. Release it at dawn. The scene shifted as sunlight pierced through the forest canopy. Rangis held a long tube in his hands, peering ahead with curiosity. Celine also sensed something unusual. Did the ground just tremble slightly? Lika, walking ahead, furrowed her brow and assessed the situation with a serious expression. Something's off. What is that feeling? A blonde-haired boy standing nearby looked on innocently. Upper-class students again. Rangis began to voice the chaotic thoughts running through his mind, which only made Lika feel more uneasy. Maybe it is a monster. Like a wild boar, fierce and aggressive. Or something along those lines. Her expression grew steadily more troubled. But why does it feel like? Suddenly, a violent crash thundered from somewhere nearby, shaking the area around them. Above their heads, a massive ancient tree was tilting, its enormous trunk creaking as it began to fall. Realizing the danger, Lika immediately shouted at the top of her lungs to warn everyone around her. The tree is falling, move. All of them scrambled with difficulty, darting out of the collapsing tree's path just in time. Once Lika managed to evade it, she glanced back in confusion. What was that? Celine, her face pale with fear, finally understood and whispered, that is. Rangis trembled as he looked upward, while the younger boy beside him simply stared, wide-eyed. Emerging from the forest was a creature with a body made entirely of stone and 2 glowing, blood-red eyes. A golem, sudden, towering, and terrifying. Zeke stood there staring upward, his expression bored and indifferent, as if he had already predicted this moment. So, it is finally time, he thought. He let out a long sigh and leaned back against the pile of bodies he had casually taken down a short while ago. Outside his little perch, patrol squads continued sweeping through the forest, but none of it interested him anymore. I am getting bored. There is no one left who can put up a decent fight. How disappointing. Suddenly, from deep within the woods, a flock of birds burst into the sky, followed by a series of heavy, rapid tremors. Zeke tensed the moment he heard that sound, his senses sharpening at once. That presence. It had been a long time since a monster of that level had appeared. He narrowed his eyes and glanced upward as if pondering something absurd. Did they release it on purpose? Some kind of hint, the first clan leader from 1,000 years ago. But for kids at their current level, facing a 3-star opponent would be too much. Perched casually on his high vantage point, Zeke swayed from side to side, his entire body shifting left and right as if he were a bored child playing around. Something like this should have been handled by the instructors before the exam even began. No, that does not feel right. Freya, with that gentle smile that hid a dangerously calculating mind, flashed across his thoughts. Maybe they released it intentionally. But why? What exactly are they planning, seriously? The absurdity of the situation suddenly amused him. A grin spread across his face, his eyes lighting up like twin headlights. Well, this is even better. Guess I will finally get some entertainment. Finding himself excited, Zeke leapt down from his perch, landing lightly as he prepared to head toward the disturbance. I can't just sit here doing nothing. I am coming, 3-star beast. If only it had appeared closer, this would have been a lot more fun. But no, it had to show up all the way over there. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, Celine gripped her sword and fought desperately to push forward. Her entire body was knocked back by the golem's counterattack, and her blade had not even scratched it. Landing and skidding across the ground, she looked up in disbelief. No way. Not even a mark. Raymond clenched his teeth, sprang into the air with his weapon, and brought it down with all his strength. Take this, but his expression darkened immediately. His attack had done nothing. Still nothing, even with that. Then Lika darted forward, leaping high as she unleashed a fierce strike. Lightning slash, her blade came down with crackling force, and finally, a section of the golem's arm chipped off. Seeing that opening, she smirked with a hint of pride. So it only breaks when I use spirit force. Meaning, this thing can only be taken down by someone who is at least 2-star. Rangiz crept forward from behind, gripping his weapon with both hands as he hesitantly asked, Lika. What do we do now? Lika exhaled sharply, her presence shifting into that of a commander taking charge. All right, everyone, listen up. The golem still loomed before them, unmoving and massive, while Lika began outlining her plan. I will distract it. While I do that, all of you run. Her companions immediately objected. What? Rangiz cut her off without hesitation. No. We are not leaving you behind, Lika. But Lika thrust her flaming red weapon toward the golem, her eyes hardened with focus. I know this sounds harsh, but you will only slow me down. That small crack on its arm, that was everything. I had my full spirit force just to chip it a little. The golem stood there like a slab of living stone, its massive steel-like body exhaling faint puffs of white vapor with each breath. Compared to it, Lika looked tiny as she positioned herself at an angle, giving the others a stern warning. With your current strength, you can't even scratch it. Celine looked up at her, voice trembling in realization. No way. Then we really can't hurt it at all. That is right, Lika replied firmly. Not even a scratch. Raymond stepped forward, planting himself protectively in front of Lika, his brows furrowed with stubborn determination. Maybe we can't damage it, but we can support you enough for Lady Lika to land a precise strike. Lika froze, startled, eyes widening in disbelief. You guys are. Then Rangiz gripped his weapon with renewed resolve, his eyes bright as he charged forward. I will do everything I can, too. Celine, standing behind them, smiled brightly. Exactly. If we all fight together, under your command, who knows, we might actually stand a chance. Hearing those words, Lika felt something tighten in her chest. She was moved. Everyone. A small smile tugged at her lips before she whispered, all right then. In that case. She stepped back alone, gathering spirit force into her blade while the others took their positions ahead, ready to shield her. Cover me. Lika unleashed everything she had, channeling a torrent of energy through her sword. I am coming. Like lightning, she dashed past her allies, blade glowing with fierce power as she lunged toward the massive golem. The creature squared its stance, its crimson eyes locking onto her with chilling focus. Just as the golem's colossal fist came crashing down, Raymond dove in front of her, shield raised high, taking the full brunt of the blow. Raymond's expression twisted more and more unnervingly as he braced against the impact. It was clear the situation was getting dangerously difficult. He finally staggered back, and Celine along with Rangiz rushed forward, weapons raised, charging straight at the golem. While the creature was focused on those in front of it, Lika seized the opening. In a flash, she leapt from behind, sword in hand. With a sharp cry, she brought her blade down in a devastating arc. Thunder Soul heavy blade technique. Her strike landed squarely on the golem's body, unleashing a violent clash of force that exploded into a blinding flash of white heaven's thunder. A massive blast detonated deep within the forest, echoing outward in a thunderous shockwave. The ground around them trembled beneath a surge of golden energy rippling through the clearing. As Lika landed, Rangiz sprinted to her side in panic. Lika, are you all right? She forced a weak smile. Barely. That last strike took every bit of spirit energy I had. She looked toward Celine, who was supporting Raymond, and called out with concern. More importantly, Raymond, are you hurt? Through labored breaths, he straightened himself. I am fine. Relief flickered across her face. Good. Then. But before she could finish her sentence, something massive stirred behind them. The golem rose again, its shadow stretching ominously across the ground. Everyone. We should return to base, Lika said, but the words barely left her lips before the danger snapped into motion. Rangiz was suddenly shoved aside by Lika, so abruptly he could not react. She had thrown herself into harm's way, choosing to be caught instead of him. The golem's enormous hand closed around her in an unyielding grip. Lika, Rangiz shouted. She gasped sharply, every breath crushed under the monster's grip. Pain lanced through her ribs as she realized her mistake. I let my guard down. It can still move. Celine, still holding Raymond up, froze in horror. No. Even after that, how is it still moving? Raymond could only grit his teeth in helpless agony. Lika. Driven purely by emotion, Rangiz charged recklessly, weapon raised. Let her go, let her go. The golem only lifted its massive arm with a slow, deliberate motion, staring down at him with cold, empty red eyes. The sight sent a chill through Rangiz's spine. Lika. He whispered, panic rising in his throat. And then a violent gale erupted out of nowhere, a roaring force that warped the air around the golem as the ground and trees around it distorted under the pressure. The golem was suddenly hit by a crushing force that slammed into it, sending its massive body toppling backward. One side of its stone torso shattered under the impact, fragments spraying across the ground. The blow loosened its grip, and Lika was thrown violently to the earth. Seizing the moment, Rangiz sprinted forward, scooping her into his arms and carrying her deeper into the forest. My lady, are you all right? She could barely speak, her voice raspy and confused. But what on earth? Before she could finish, a strange, almost manic laugh echoed through the trees. Zeke appeared with a booming voice, as if he found the entire scene wildly entertaining. What is with all the noise out here? Lika's eyes widened as she recognized the familiar presence, that voice. Rangiz also spotted him and called out in disbelief, Zeke. Zeke leapt out from behind a thick cluster of bushes with effortless agility, landing lightly on his feet. He looked around, clearly intrigued. So what is going on here? Then his eyes settled on the damaged golem struggling to rise. His grin widened with excitement. Well now. What is this little dirt puppet supposed to be? A moment later, a streak of blazing golden lightning tore down from the sky. TCH. This does not look good. Zeke did not hesitate for even a second and sprinted straight toward it. That was lightning, no doubt about it. Which meant Lika's group had reached the area ahead of him. Back when he was still at his peak, a distance like this would have been nothing to him at all. He was burning with urgency to protect the kids. Lika's team was full of promising talents, but how long could they possibly hold out against a 3-star opponent? At this pace, he would not make it in time. Zeke skidded to a sudden halt. All right then. I will try that new technique I picked up the other day. He reached out and clenched his hand tightly around the trunk of a nearby tree. Let us see what you can do. Zeke poured every ounce of strength in his body into it and ripped the tree straight out of the ground. He let out a roar as he spun his body, building momentum, then released his grip and sent the massive trunk hurtling straight up into the sky. Zeke watched its trajectory with clear satisfaction. Yeah. This works pretty well. I thought this body might end up needing proper techniques after all. Good thing I bothered to learn. The cultivation method that suited him best right now was the dragon nourishment art. This basic giant dragon martial manual had been handed out to the kids before the exam. Much like the Dragon Thief Close Combat Manual, it was not exactly a complete martial art so much as a handbook laying out fundamental movements and the proper way to circulate internal energy. He nodded repeatedly, clicking his tongue in admiration. So that is how it is. It actually fits me perfectly. After all, in his previous life, long-range attacks were practically non-existent 1,000 years ago. Back then, long-range basically meant running over on your own 2 legs. Zeke suddenly snapped back to reality. Right. I am supposed to be saving the kids. There was no time left for nostalgia. He needed to act now. Moments later, he burst through the trees and spotted Rangiz and Lika. Zeke broke into a wide grin and casually waved at them. Everyone okay? Rangi's hurriedly summarized the situation in a panic. Why yes, but that is not the biggest problem right now, that thing over there. Zeke's eyes lit up with interest. Oh, so that is called a golem. He pointed at the thing charging toward them while calmly appraising it. It has an aura, but no life force at all. A truly strange existence. His tone made everyone else break into a cold sweat. Zeke, be careful. The stone golem thundered forward, each step heavy, and swung its arm down in a crushing blow. Zeke caught its fist head-on, his voice brimming with excitement. That shell's pretty tough, is not it? With hardness like this, you probably can't break it without strikes reinforced by internal energy. But beating it the normal way, would not that be boring? With that, Zeke grinned mischievously and flicked the golem away, sending it flying backward. Rangi's and Laika, already used to this kind of madness, were not even surprised anymore. Still reckless as ever. Boring, why does he always act like this? The golem quickly regained its footing, bringing both hands together and raising them high over its head. Zeke's gaze sharpened, turning dangerous as he assessed it. Judging by that size. Yeah, this could get interesting. Then, with startling speed, the golem brought its arms crashing down toward his head. The ground caved in under the impact, sending out a shockwave that rippled through the area. Zeke bared his teeth in a grin and warned everyone nearby, this is going to be pretty dangerous, so back off. The kids trusted him instantly and turned around to run without hesitation. Yes, sir. Zeke planted his feet firmly into the ground, bracing himself against the overwhelming force. Now then. He gathered what little strength he had left into his arm, forcing himself upright and flinging the golem aside. That outer shell really is tough. A bold, almost reckless idea took shape in his mind. If that is the case, then let us see whether the inside is just as sturdy. Zeke sprang upward with visible excitement, drawing back his fist. All right, time for an experiment. His punch slammed down into the stone body of the golem. Dragon Annihilation Form First Stance. He did not stop there. The second stance followed immediately, unleashing a violent burst that began to tear the golem apart. Rather than trying to break through the outer shell, he used explosive force to flood its interior with circulating energy, detonating it from the inside out. Zeke clenched his fist and stood tall amid the destruction. Well, looks like it worked. Now this is what you call interesting. A blinding flash of light erupted, making the entire forest glitter as if bathed in sunlight. Freya, however, felt no joy at all. The rules of the upperclassmen's test were clear: attack the lowerclassmen and seize their crystals. Yet here he was a lowerclassman attacking the upperclassmen instead. No one had ever done something like this before. Hands on her hips, Freya scolded him at the top of her lungs. Because of him, not a single one of them had managed to obtain any crystals, and all of them would now be forced to retake the exam. Zeke, meanwhile, remained infuriatingly relaxed. But none of that violates the rules, he replied calmly. And I did not seize anything either. That response made her shout even louder. Under normal circumstances, who would ever expect a lowerclassman to counterattack the upperclassman in the first place? Freya turned away, exhausted, letting out a long sigh. Ha! Regardless, that carefree attitude of yours when you stand before the clan head, you will change it. At that moment, the two of them were standing before a door of judgment. As Freya strode forward, she issued one warning after another. Whatever happens, drop that sloppy attitude the moment you are in front of the headmaster. Zeke frowned in confusion. Why? She let out a short, humorless laugh at his reaction. Why? Her voice darkened, carrying a threatening undertone. Because you will be eliminated. Even if you are just a child. There was a trace of worry and sadness in her expression as she thought about his future. I won't allow that to happen, she resolved silently. Zeke merely sighed in response. How ruthless. She stepped forward, raised her hand, and knocked once on the door. Clan head. Freya announced herself clearly and formally. Black Dragon Guard member Freya reporting, responding to the summons. A low, authoritative voice sounded from within. Enter. Only after receiving permission did they push the door open and step inside. Excuse us. Zeke's gaze shifted, landing on the most powerful figure in the room. Freya placed one arm behind her back and reported, I have brought Zeke with me. The man with graying white hair lifted his head, sharp eyes gleaming. He spoke in a tone that felt like an interrogation. Why is that? Did you attack the upperclassmen? Zeke's expression did not waver in the slightest. Everyone keeps asking that, so let me ask in return. Was I not allowed to attack them? Balza clearly had not expected such a brazen response. What did you say? Zeke slipped his hands into his pockets and explained calmly, in unmistakable terms. The only conditions to pass were to survive 1 month on Poison Dragon Mountain and retain your crystal. I never heard of any other rules. So I followed them and spent my time however I pleased. If certain actions were forbidden, then you should have made that clear before the test began. Those arrogant words instantly drained the color from Freya's face. She hurriedly shouted, trying to cut him off. Zeke, you. Balza's eyes darkened at once, murderous intent spilling out and filling the room. It was as if an ancient dragon had been stirred from slumber, its roar shaking the heavens. The pressure was so overwhelming that Freya's legs buckled beneath her. With pressure like this, he will die. However, Zeke remained standing exactly where he was, hands still tucked casually into his pockets. He even spoke up boldly, issuing a blunt warning. Do not threaten me. It is annoying. This was the first time in Balza's life that he had ever faced such a situation. Zeke curled his lips in open disdain, mocking Balza's actions. So you summoned me all the way here just to ask about such trivial matters, then? Out of nowhere, a question slipped from Balza's mouth. Exactly how did you do it? The sudden, contextless question left Zeke momentarily confused. Do what? Balza reiterated the unbelievable incident Zeke had caused. According to the reports, you not only defeated upperclassmen, but also brought down a golem. And yet, the person standing before me now is unnervingly calm. Balza's gaze grew complicated, tinged with confusion as he scrutinized Zeke. How can a bastard child like you possess such strength? Zeke gave a small shrug, as if the answer were obvious, and began to speak. The reason for my strength, it is very simple. With unmistakable pride, Zeke pointed at his own face, brimming with confidence. There is no reason other than this being my talent. The eyes of the two men flashed, neither willing to yield. In the end, Balza waved his hand, unwilling to waste any more time. Your attitude is indeed as arrogant as the rumors say. However, for defeating a golem, I will grant you a reward, either 1 treasure from the Dragon Treasury Pavilion, or permission to enter the Dragon Scripture Pavilion up to the 2nd floor. Choose one. Freya froze completely, her eyes going wide. A reward? What is going on here? The places mentioned as rewards, the Dragon Scripture Pavilion and the Dragon Treasury Pavilion, were repositories of priceless treasures collected by generations of academy heads over more than 1,000 years, dating back to the era of the founder, Gilphas. The first, the Dragon Scripture Pavilion, was a place countless scholars dreamed of entering. It housed all manner of texts, including volumes that had long since been banned. The second was a vast treasure vault. The Dragon Treasury Pavilion preserved relics left behind by previous academy heads, legendary weapons, spirit medicines, magical artifacts, and countless other items. Rare treasures from many different eras were stored within. These places had become legends within the academy. They were secret vaults belonging to the Eldragon family, guarded with extreme strictness. Only those granted special permission could enter. In particular, reaching the 2nd floor or higher of the Dragon Scripture Pavilion required truly exceptional achievements. Freya stared wide-eyed at Zeke's smug, self-satisfied expression. After everything, his blatant disrespect had somehow been deemed outstanding. Even worse, he greedily pressed further. If that is the reward, why not give me both? That is awfully stingy. Balza did not bother responding and instead waved him away. Enough. Leave. But there was no way Zeke would let it end there. What, that is it, we are done already, I still have plenty more to say. This time, Freya reacted instantly, grabbing him by the collar. Wait, Zeke. She forced a bright smile and spoke on his behalf, offering thanks. We are deeply honored to receive a reward directly from you. We obey your command, clan head. Let us take our leave. Come, Zeke. Without giving him another chance to speak, she dragged him out of the room. Zeke allowed himself to be dragged away, speaking in a flat, almost lazy tone. Then I will just say one last thing. The corner of his mouth curled upward, wild arrogance spilling into his expression as he offered his advice. As long as you keep suppressing your emotions like that, no matter how hard you try, you will never truly become stronger. The clash of pressure from two ancient dragons facing one another made the entire room tremble. Freya was terrified out of her wits. Lowering her voice yet sounding irritated at the same time, she hurriedly said, "Please remain silent. Clan head, we request permission to withdraw." She left Balza standing there in a daze, alone in the room. What was that pressure just now? Once they were outside, far enough away from the clan head's office, Freya finally exploded. "You!" She raised her voice and yelled straight at Zeke's face, fury written all over her. "What the hell were you thinking, speaking to the clan head with that kind of attitude? Did not you hear a single word of what I told you before we went in?" Zeke frowned slightly, looking genuinely puzzled. "What are you talking about?" I held back as much as I possibly could. Freya looked like she was about to lose her mind on the spot. "That is what you call holding back?" Unable to contain her frustration, she sharply questioned his behavior. "You can speak politely to me and to the instructors, so why could not you do the same with the clan head?" Zeke answered calmly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Because in the end, he is still my biological father." Freya was left speechless, unable to say another word. Truly. With that level of ability and that kind of attitude. She forced herself to calm down. "You are not a normal child. Just who are you, really?" Hearing that question, Zeke repeated it softly. "You are asking who I am." A faint smile traced his lips. "I already told you. I am just me." The same answer as before, simple, identical, left her stunned into silence. Freya could not make sense of any of this. All of them had consumed ancient dragon blood. Because of that, it should have been absolutely impossible for them to oppose the clan head, the one who wielded the power of the dragon king, a higher existence even than ancient dragons. It should have been that way. And yet, Zeke felt like some alien being that had descended upon this place. How could this child remain so eerily calm before the clan head? When she did not respond, he tilted his head slightly. "Is something wrong?" Freya softly denied the thoughts swirling in her mind. "No. It is nothing. I will need to re-examine the birth records more carefully." She let out a breath, no longer wanting to argue. "So, which reward will you choose? You can either enter the second floor of the Dragon Scripture Pavilion, or take a treasure from the Dragon Treasury Pavilion." Zeke raised two fingers with a pitiful look. "Both." She rejected him decisively. "No." Zeke pouted for a moment before quickly deciding what he needed most. "Can't be helped, huh, then." The very next day, Zeke stood before a white palace. He gazed at it in quiet admiration. So this is knowledge. After being neglected for 7 years, this place mattered more than anything else. I lack far too much understanding of this era. He was also curious about the spirit medicines and new tools developed over the past 1,000 years. Behind him, Rengis came running up, eyes sparkling as he looked around. "I can't believe I actually get to enter the Dragon Scripture Pavilion." Zeke did not quite understand his excitement. "Are you really that happy?" Rengis nodded vigorously. "Of course." His small, fair face flushed red with excitement. "The Dragon Thief Close Combat Manual and the Dragon Nourishment Spear Art I just learned were already amazing. But this is a chance to learn even better martial techniques. I never imagined the reward for passing the test would be this extravagant." "It is really moving." Lika stepped out from behind Rengis, nodding in agreement. "With the limited time we have, how much knowledge can we really absorb? We will have to work incredibly hard." This was the first time Zeke had heard anything about a time limit. "There is a limit." Lika looked as though this were common knowledge. "Yes. We are only allowed access to the first floor. But the basic rules should be the same." She went on to explain the system to him. "You are only allowed to borrow 1 book. But you can read as many as you like within the allotted time. That is why how you manage your time is extremely important." Zeke clicked his tongue and nodded, taking it in. "Got it." Lika then brightened, curiosity flickering across her face as she turned to Zeke. "By the way, I heard about this, Zeke. You chose the Dragon Scripture Pavilion instead of the Dragon Treasury Pavilion as your reward." They clearly did not understand his choice. With your personality, we thought you would definitely pick something from the Dragon Treasury Pavilion. At that, Zeke looked slightly troubled. I thought about that too. But right now, knowledge matters more to me than anything else. Lika bit her finger, envy and longing written all over her face. Knowledge, huh? I heard the second floor has books even rarer than those on the first. Especially the martial manuals. People say the difference in level between the first and second floors is huge. Man. But she quickly perked back up, confidence returning. Still, I do not think there is anything better than my Thunder Soul heavy sword art. Hey, Zeke, are you listening? Hey. The three of them moved deeper inside and soon encountered a guard. You have 5 hours inside the building. Use your time wisely and adhere strictly to the time limit. As Zeke followed the others in, he could not help but murmur in wonder. I wonder if that is a long time. Or a short one. Lika answered briskly, it is long if you use it right. Drawing on her experience, she shared some last-minute advice. First, decide which book you want to borrow. After that, spend the remaining time reading as many other books as you can. Rangis looked both nervous and excited. I have heard that true geniuses can skim through multiple books at once. But my goal is just to find one martial manual that suits me within that time. When they stepped into the main hall, an overwhelming sea of books spread out before them. Truly just finding the book you needed in a place like this would already be a challenge. Without realizing it, they all lowered their voices, murmuring in awe. So this is the Dragon Scripture Pavilion. Zeke lifted his gaze toward the ceiling, which rose so high its end was nowhere in sight. This is more impressive than I expected. He bared his teeth in eager anticipation, excitement flickering in his eyes. Now then. Let us see what kind of knowledge is waiting for me. Stepping boldly into the vast library, Zeke felt his interest ignite. This is going to be fun. Time slipped by quickly. After digging through records for a while, Zeke suddenly gaped in shock and shouted, "What the hell is this? No way. Rifts. Chaos. Magic?" There was far too much information. Almost all of it completely unknown to him. With a frustrated motion, he tossed the book aside and flopped flat onto the floor, staring up at the ceiling as he let out a long, exhausted sigh. 1,000 years, that's an insane amount of time. 1,000 years during which this world had been connected to another. Turning the clock back roughly 900 years, a sudden tear had appeared in the fabric of space itself. It was a rift, and on the other side lay another chaotic world known as the Realm of Chaos. In that world, creatures called Chaos ran rampant. To fight against them, the humans of that realm cultivated a special form of energy within their own bodies. The Eldragon family had fought alongside them against Chaos, and through the bonds forged on the battlefield. 4 mighty warriors from that other world had married into the Eldragon bloodline. Typona, Levias, Bahamut, and Fafnield. They became the founders of the 4 great branches of the Eldragon family that still existed to this day. Now that he thought about it, that furious roar shrouded in strange black mist. And like as lightning-wreathed radiance, it all made sense. They had come from another world. No wonder he hadn't understood a thing. And the thing that intrigued him the most was magic, a brand new form of technology brought over from that other world. Where were the books that taught how to use it? Why wasn't there a single one to be found? Normally, material like that should be shelved right next to the history texts. As he spoke, the protagonist's eyes sparkled like stars. However, his noise was immediately cut off by a calm voice. Please remain quiet inside the building. Instead of deterring him, that only made Zeke even more curious. The voice carried no presence at all, only sound. Could this be what that thing was? A technique that transmitted sound alone, without him sensing any energy or power source whatsoever? At the same time, several books around him suddenly began to float, as if manipulated by some unseen force. Seeing this, Zeke grew wildly excited and shouted, "What is this? Oh, using energy like threads to move objects? That's an amazing technique." The warning voice rang out once more. Please remain quiet. As if Zeke would listen to that, he lunged forward and grabbed a book tightly. How am I supposed to stay quiet in front of something this interesting? Come out here right now and teach me yourself. Not far away, A mysterious figure cloaked in robes used magic to form glowing strands of light, which wrapped tightly around Zeke's body and yanked him up into the air. "You've arrived. The doors are closing," the figure said, before unceremoniously hurling Zeke into a mysterious formation. Fortunately, Zeke's reflexes were sharp. With a quick flip and twist, he managed to stabilize himself mid-air and land without crashing. "What was that? What was that just now? That's another thing I've never seen before. Show it to me properly," Zeke complained irritably. At that moment, Rangiz, who had just arrived from behind and witnessed the scene, stared in shock and blurted out, "Sir Zeke, what on earth just happened here?" Laika let out a sigh and chimed in, "What did you do to get yourself thrown out like that?" Zeke scratched his head awkwardly as he explained, I might have gotten a little too excited. What about you guys? Did you find anything you liked?" Hearing that, Rangiz eagerly shared his results. "Yes, I did. I borrowed a martial manual called Cloud Water Spear Art, and I think I've already learned a simple footwork technique from it." On the side, Celine also took out a book and said, "I learned a footwork technique as well. I borrowed this martial manual called Floral Wind Sword Art." Raymond spoke up with his own choice. "I learned the Eldragon Guardian sword style from this one. The book I borrowed is also titled Eldragon Guardian Martial Manual." Their selections made Zeke feel an odd tightness in his chest. He thought to himself, "All of those martial arts. I made them myself back in my previous life. Just to kill time." Even so, Zeke nodded calmly. "I see. Then what about you, Laika? What did you choose?" Laika replied cheerfully, "This one, Heavy Wave Greatsword Art. I heard it was created by the first head of the family, and that the revised and improved version of the Heavy Wave Greatsword was made by the 15th head. Since I already have my family's inherited martial manual, this one is just for research." From Zeke's perspective, Laika's words gave him pause. The 15th head again. Dragon Breath Art and Dragon Impact were also created by the 15th head. "There were so many martial manuals I made back in the Dragon Temple, and quite a few of them have revised versions placed right next to the originals. Don't tell me those were also done by the 15th head?" To be honest, when he first came here, he'd thought he would be bored out of his mind. Now, he could hardly wait to see what came next. Time passed swiftly. 5 years later, Laika's puzzled voice echoed through the corridor. "Huh? Where did Zeke and everyone go?" Someone nearby immediately answered, Lady Laika, Sir Zeke and his companions have already gone to the training grounds." Laika waved her hand. "Thanks. Again. Huh? Got it. Thank you." The scene shifted to the training grounds. There, the protagonist stood alone, fighting against 3 opponents at once, Rangiz, Celine, and Raymond. The scene shifts to Balza's office. At this moment, he is lightly tapping his fingers against the surface of the desk while speaking to the man standing before him. "Is this really the configuration of a special rift? Are you certain about this?" In response, Ein, the commander of the Black Dragon Legion, steps forward and reports, "Yes. Based on our investigation, there is approximately an 80% chance that demonic water exists within this rift." Such a confident answer seems to make Balza hesitate slightly. He lets out a quiet sigh. It had to appear in such a troublesome location. Of all places, why did the demonic water have to choose that spot? Those who drink this water become mages. That is what demonic water is. Those who consume it undergo a special transformation, gaining the ability to convert their vital essence into another form of power mana. New techniques unleashed through mana would bring about a revolution across the world. At the same time, fierce territorial conflicts over demonic water, the so-called magic springs, had already begun. The age of magic had arrived, an era in which the number of mages a family possessed would largely determine its military strength. Within Eldragon territory, there was not a single magic spring to be found. For families that did not own a magic spring, there was only one way to obtain demonic water: conquering a special rift. At present, the Eldragon family possessed only a handful of mages, Balza included. Every one of them was a seasoned elite, having earned their demonic water through the conquest of special rifts. Even so, the family was currently being overwhelmed in sheer numbers by other families, those that owned magic springs. As a result, conquering special rifts had become the Eldragon family's highest priority. And yet, On the other side, Ein seemed to understand the concerns weighing on the head of the family. He continued. As you mentioned, this location, the verdant dragon forest, is extremely problematic. In the surrounding regions, there was even a small-scale border conflict just a few days ago. The verdant dragon forest is vast, stretching far beyond our territory and into the lands of another family. Part of it extends into Cerberus territory, those who claim joint ownership of the forest and call it the verdant hound forest instead. Our territory certainly lies within Eldragon's borders. However, judging by the scale and position of the rift, there is a strong likelihood that it will extend into Cerberus territory as well. Given the nature of those golden hunting dogs, they will most likely come swarming in. As he spoke, Ein pointed at the map laid out before them. The head of the Eldragon family nodded in full agreement. At the very least, their noses are sharp. They are bound to notice sooner or later. Commander Ein then put forward his proposal. We need to prepare a force strong enough to maintain control of the situation, in case we are forced into a confrontation with them. Since this is a special rift, the options available to both sides will be limited. Before Ein could finish his sentence, Eldragon had already grasped his meaning. We need to act before they notice, correct? Immediately inform the dragon cells. Tell them we are holding a selection trial. Eldragon issued the order in a firm tone. Ein accepted it at once. Understood. Elsewhere, in a different development, the young girl Laika had just arrived at the training grounds. She let out a sigh. You really go all the way, do not you? Ahead of her, Zeke stood firm and unshaken, calmly facing the combined assault of three people, Rangis, Celine, and Raymond. All three unleashed their signature techniques at once. Wildflower sword art, scattering blossom Celine. Eldragon-style guardian shield art, stonewall fist Raymond. Watercloud spear art, piercing flow Rangis. At the very instant those attacks were about to land, Zeke's eyes suddenly flared with light. He casually raised a hand and blocked Celine's sword. As for the spearhead and the shield strike, he did not even bother to dodge them. They are not even enough to scratch the protagonist's skin, he said coolly. That said, Rangis, you are pouring too much force into that thrust. By doing that, you are killing the very strengths of spear techniques. Then he turned to Celine and added. Celine, you are overly focused on speed and raw stats, which is throwing off your balance. Learn how to distribute it properly. Finally, Zeke looked toward Raymond. Raymond, you are doing fairly well, but your passive nature has not changed. You should get used to taking the initiative when attacking. One more round. Yes, the group shouted in unison. However, before they could launch another wave of attacks, Laika stepped forward. As always, she commented dryly. This really is a crazy sight. Zeke turned to complain. What do you mean, crazy, brat? Laika shrugged in response. Blocking attacks head-on without using vital essence, if that is not crazy, what is? Right after saying that, Zeke continued to fend off incoming blows while shouting back. Nonsense, this is perfectly legitimate training. Look, this is the result of that training. Even without using vital essence, the body can become this tough. Lady Laika, look at that. Is not Sir Zeke a bit too strange? Someone exclaimed. At least he did not tell them to stop attacking while we are talking, another person shouted. Nearby, one individual simply covered his face and groaned. I think what is really strange is you people continuing to attack him no matter what. Off to the side, Raymond and Celine could not hide their amazement. Defense like that without using vital essence, a human like this is just unfathomable. Hearing this, the young Laika immediately explained. Zeke is not human, so do not lump him in with the rest of us. Do you know what the seniors call him? They call him the monster child of the Eastern District. Upon hearing that title, even Zeke could not help but complain. Is not that a bit rude toward me? Setting that aside, the protagonist spoke up and asked. So, you do not have any business with us, or did you come here to train with us? Laika obviously had not come just to hang around. She was here to deliver some news. Training is fine, but there is something I need to tell you first. It looks like you are going to run into kids from the other dragon cells and probably very soon. This information caught the others off guard. What? I figured this day would come eventually, but it is really happening. Celine then asked for clarification. Is this the next test? Laika shrugged. Who knows, I do not even know that much myself. Zeke immediately turned to her. Then how do you know about any of this? I can tell just by watching the instructors, listening to their conversations and observing how they act, Laika explained calmly. Meanwhile, someone commented. He has never paid attention to things like this. That remark seemed to irritate someone slightly. Typical of a carefree heir candidate. Still, you should be careful. There is someone in the Western District, another candidate for the position of next family head, who has his sights set on you. In response to this warning, Zeke showed not fear but a faint sense of excitement. Then that makes things interesting. I have been looking forward to it. Time passed quickly. A few days later, the children were gathered once more at the training grounds. The protagonist group seemed to have already guessed the reason. Zeke whispered. Laika, this is probably what you were talking about earlier. Laika nodded in agreement. Yeah, most likely. Sure enough, moments later, Freya's voice rang out. Is everyone here? Shut up, all of you. At the sight of her, the children fell completely silent, not daring to utter a single word. Their fearful reaction clearly pleased Freya. Good, starting today, for the next 3 days, you will be fighting against the children from the other dragon cells. The scene shifts once again. It seems the children had not been informed of this beforehand, and the group immediately erupted into lively discussion. Fighting kids from the other districts, that usually only happens during the graduation exam, right? Why is this so sudden? Standing at the front, Freya naturally heard those whispered conversations. However, she had no intention of offering a lengthy explanation. There are many reasons I can't go into in detail yet, but let me say this much: the ones who win this tournament will be assigned a special mission. Just hearing that was enough to make the protagonist's eyes sparkle like stars. A surge of excitement rose within him. A special mission that requires us to fight like this. Unaware of what he was thinking, Freya continued her explanation. This will be a single elimination tournament, with 7 representatives chosen from each district. East, West, North, and South. You must decide on your representatives before the end of today. Is that clear? From among the children, someone suddenly raised a question. Those 7 will be chosen from the upper classes, right? Unfortunately for him, Freya immediately delivered some bad news. Why do you think I gathered everyone here? I will be choosing from all grade levels. Once again, the crowd was taken by surprise. What? Even if you say that? What can the lower class kids possibly contribute? Aside from us, none of them can fight at all. They're just trash. At those words, the younger students looked visibly unsettled, yet none of them dared to talk back. As for the beautiful Freya, she completely ignored them, simply waving her hand as she spoke. I do not care how you do it, as long as you have decided before the end of today. Then, immediately after she left, a senior named Rick stepped forward and shouted loudly. Listen up, the 7 representatives will be chosen from as seniors. That is obvious, right? No objections, I assume. In response, how could Laika possibly stay silent? She immediately shot back. Actually, I do have an objection. It is not fair to only pick from the seniors. Should not the lower classes be considered too? I am qualified for this as well. On the other side, seeing her step forward, Rick broke into an arrogant smile. Well, if it is not Lady Laika. It seems you are misunderstanding something. We are talking about real strength here. You have got it wrong. This is about capability. He spoke with absolute confidence, completely unaware that just a second later, Laika's power would erupt. 3 small points of light appeared around her body, symbols of 3 stars. Witnessing this, the entire group of upperclassmen immediately turned pale in shock. What? 3 stars? That is impossible. The rumors said she was only at 2 stars at most. Since when did this happen? The group stammered in response, which only encouraged Laika to press her advantage. I agree that selection should be based on strength. So tell me, are there really more than 7 seniors who are stronger than me? Answer me. If there are not, then the lower classes should be included as well. Hearing this, Rick realized he was at a disadvantage, yet he still strained his neck and argued back. That is only because Lady Laika is an exception. The others can't possibly be compared to the seniors. At that moment, Zeke's voice suddenly cut in. You are being way too loud. Rick rolled his eyes and turned to shout. You bastard, what the hell did you just say? Zeke smacked his lips and repeated himself. I said you are being too loud. I am talking about you seniors yelling your heads off, acting like the lower class kids are nothing but trash, right? In that case, how about we just fight until only 7 people are still standing? As he made the suggestion, the protagonist wore an extremely bloodthirsty expression. These words were so extreme that even Laika could not accept them. Zeke, that would automatically cause a ton of violent problems. What she really meant was, how about we hold a preliminary round for anyone who wants to participate? Anyone who wants in can issue a challenge 3 days from now, regardless of grade level. What do you seniors think? If you are truly confident in your strength, this should not be a problem, right? Faced with Laika's proposal, the upperclassmen seemed to accept it, at least for the moment. Fine. Though I think it will be a complete waste of time. With that, the group withdrew. Laika then turned back to Zeke and said, all right then. Zeke, you will be joining the preliminaries too, right? Zeke answered with a bright smile. Of course. And Rangiz, Raymond, Celine, you three should join as well. The other two did not react much, but Rangiz's eyes went wide. You want us to fight the seniors? Zeke reminded him seriously. That is right. You have been training with me this whole time, have not you? If not for this moment, then what was all that training for? On this side, the swordswoman Celine was so anxious she felt dizzy. The pressure. It is overwhelming. She muttered under her breath, while Raymond could only offer a helpless consolation. All we can do is try our best. Turning back toward Laika, she asked the rest of the lower-class students. That group's decided, as usual. With those 3 joining, does anyone else want to give it a try? The group of younger students huddled together and whispered among themselves. Even so, our opponents are seniors. We do not stand a chance. I mean, some of them are at least 3-star rank. Seeing how intently the lower-class kids stared at him, how frightened they looked, Zeke felt a bit disappointed. Seriously. You could at least show some backbone. You gain the most by fighting someone stronger than yourself. Whatever, let us just wait and see for now. Let us see what kind of strength those seniors are so proud of.